Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 19th edition of the Canyon City Council. As all our council meetings here for a while, we go ahead and have an open mic the first 15 minutes. So if you would like to come and address the council at this time, please feel free to do so. Come on up, and we'd at least like to have your name. And we have 15 minutes allotted for that. If we don't have any takers, we'll move into the program. Okay, appears not. Okay. Then I would like to call to order the Monday, June the 19th, 2017 regular city council meeting. Would you, we don't have an invocation this evening, do we? Okay. Well, let's rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Troutman.
Here.
Council members Smith.
Here.
Schumacher. Here. Gill.
Here.
Weed.
Here.
Jaquez.
Here.
Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Ekstrom is excused. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens that would like to speak to council at this time?
Received no written request to speak to council on an item that's not on the agenda.
Because those would be written requests. Okay. Then I move for approval of the minutes for the June the 5th regular city council meeting, June the 5th regular special city council meeting, and June the 7th general government meeting. Are there any corrections at this time?
Why are you looking at me?
Well,
I didn't find anything.
oh,
Must be good then.
it's a small model of success there. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion and a second to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion for the approval of the minutes from the 6/5/17 regular city council meeting, the 6/5/17 special city council meeting, and the 6/7/17 general government committee meeting.
I'll second.
Second, Frank. Is there any first and second? Okay. Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner. Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Gill.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you. Are there any council member announcements at this time? Mr. Gill.
There's a planning commission meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock here. Is it 6 or 7? 6 p.m. here in the room right next door.
It's here, isn't it?
Okay, I'm sorry, in the council chambers. My apologies.
Council chambers. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Weed.
Yeah, I'll just mention that the Vision Committee meeting scheduled for this Wednesday has been canceled due to attendance by council members at the CML conference.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other council people?
Also, July 3rd, city council meeting will be canceled due to the holiday weekend.
Frank?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a notation, the fact that I was glad to see this year's balloon festival go off as great as it did. Sunday morning or Saturday morning when I went out to get the newspaper, I'm looking up in the skies and there was 6 or 7 balloons that I was able to see. So it was a great success, and it continues to grow, and I'm glad to see it go the way it's going. It benefits everybody, but it's kind of nice that we're able to get the balloons up this year.
Thank you, Frank. Anyone else?
Just another reminder that tomorrow we are having a groundbreaking for the 2A streets, that we're finally going to start getting our streets fixed tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. It's a big day for Canyon City.
And that's at Yale and College?
That's right by the high school.
College and Yale.
I would.
I live south of the tracks. You can't hold me accountable for that.
Okay, well, I drove by there on the way to the meeting this evening, and they've already broken ground quite a bit. I don't know what they're putting in, but there's a huge
Water
piece
line.
Is it a water line?
Mm-hmm.
So,
They were starting it this morning. I showed up at 8:30 this morning.
did you?
Nobody was there.
Maybe that's
They
why
all thought I was an
that's why they
idiot.
started, Kathy. You were there.
Yeah.
See what happens when you live north of the tracks?
I
Okay,
know.
then, on June the 28th, I'll have coffee with the mayor, and we'll have that El Alazan Restaurant in their conference room at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's June the 28th, 8 o'clock. Okay, anybody else? Do we want to, well, since we won't have a council meeting on the 7th, we have cruise night downtown. And so if you're going to put flowers or anything out, we always make it rain on cruise night. We hope this doesn't happen. The last two they've rained. So July 7th, correct, will be cruise night in downtown Canyon City again. Okay. I'd like to move for adoption of the agenda and the consent agenda. Tony, would you review the consent agenda items, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council. 5A is a resolution 16-217 authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Colorado Department of Transportation to pave 1/2 mile of gravel portion of 4 Mile Lane, eastern part of the city, with a $518,383 CMAQ grant with a matching amount of $107,759 from the city for a total of $626,142. Any balance will roll over to the fiscal year 2018. 5B would authorize temporary street closure of Skyline Drive on July 4th from 7 a.m. to midnight for the July 4th fireworks. 5C would authorize a temporary street closure of 12th Street between Forest Avenue and College Avenue on July 7th, 8th, and 9th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the annual Canyon City swim meets. 5D is a resolution 17-218 to change the address of 1375 Fairview to North 14th Street because the current address does not physically represent the location of the apartment building, which are the Sheridan Manor apartments. And this is necessary for proper and expedited emergency response, both by police and fire and medical services. My understanding is the residents have been notified this. It's always a difficult process to change your address, but I think this is a paramount reason to do that. 5E is a ratification to ratify the city manager's execution of a service agreement with CCOM for the police department internet service upgrade. And 5F is to authorize the city administrator to sign a contract with the National Research Center from Boulder, same group we hired last year, to conduct a 2017 citizen survey at a cost of $15,885, including 14 customized questions. So if you have any proposed changes to those questions, tonight would be the time to modify them, because we'll be sending this off to Boulder tomorrow. And the first surveys will hit the 1,500 homes on the week of July the 24th. Surveys will, again, will be based on 1,500 homes. That's a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. And last year's response rate was one of the highest in the country, so I hope we can continue to get a high response rate. And I know the local papers help promote that, and I think that was important in getting such a high response rate. People are aware of it. 5G would authorize the city administrators to execute a contract with Innovative HR Solutions, the same firm we hired last year for the 2016 employee survey, for $11,315.50. Again, this is a survey much like the citizen survey to assess what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities for improvement, both organizational and community-wide. So it's a very important element of what we do every year as far as driving our budget, our business plan, and our strategic direction, listening to the voice of the citizens and listening to the voice of our employees. 5H would authorize the delay of appointment to the Building Code Committee for appointments to occur on September 18th and for the committee to convene starting October the 1st. This is necessitated by the fact that two city facilitators, Deanna Swetlick and Ryan, are both brand new, and just allow them to get their feet on the ground. They're currently getting adapted to their new jobs. They've literally been on the jobs for less than a couple of weeks, and also allow them to complete the Arkansas River Corridor Committee, which will conclude by August, and our wayfinding. 5I, I don't see the Williams here. I might ask, oh, there they are. I would ask them, the way this is currently structured. This is a 3-year, 2% economic development loan for them to enable them to complete their sanitary hookup to the residents at the Dawson Ranch Stables. If they want a change, this is the time to do it. So are we looking at 5 years versus 3? I know you proposed 10, so which one are you going to execute? Okay. If that's fine with the council, we have a copy of the 5-year agreement. What I'd ask them to do is maybe in a few minutes step aside and execute the agreement. Jim, do you have a question?
We want to discuss it now or later?
Sure.
I would
Council.
suggest, not to interrupt the protocol, but that we maybe, I would request that item
5I.
I be pulled from the consent agenda, put on the regular agenda. That'll give us an opportunity to discuss it.
No, Kathy would have to notarize it too. 5J would be adoption of the Gateway Monument and wayfinding signage as the General Government Committee had recommended on June 7th. Now that is without the inclusion of the Royal Gorge Bridge. So people understand that. If there's a discussion you want on that, you might want to pull that item for further discussion, if there's not a consensus.
I just thought it was a good idea. No, I haven't.
Well, I think we could probably have a brief discussion about it, but also, just going back, I wanted to have a discussion on the contract for services for the survey. Does that also need to be pulled to the
If you want
agenda?
it, which one, the citizen or the employee?
Citizen.
Okay, yeah, you can pull that. Or unless you want me to answer your questions now.
I want to have a discussion on it.
And finally, the bid awards, these are significant. These relate to the Centennial Park. You've just completed a master plan. These are the first phase improvements. 32-17 would be playground equipment to Churchill Recreation from Neowak, Colorado, in the amount of $250,000, plus a 10% contingency for a total of $275,000. 33-17 would be for a splash pad to Splash Zone Limited Liability Corporation out of Mesa, Arizona, for the amount of $349,910 with a 10% contingency, making the total award not to exceed $384,901. And finally, bid 49-17 would be the award of a restroom facility to CTX from Spokane Valley of Washington, in the amount of $153,719.98, plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed award of $169,091.98.
I have a question about the bids on the park. What about the bids for the pavilion? Did that get put out, or is that going to go out this year?
Not yet, no.
And what's the reason why?
That was originally not part of the original budget. The Rotary has, as you know, has offered to help pay for that. So we'll create designs for that and then have the council approve those designs and then put it out to bid.
The Rotary's money is going towards the splash pad.
It was a fountain. They were collecting it for a fountain, but they were going to participate in the splash pad that I thought.
That's what I was originally told, and then they also indicated they wanted to support this new facility. We'll double check on that with Rex. But we have to come up with a final design and then have the council approve that.
Dennis?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the Rotary's original intent, and George is out there, he can cross-check me on this, but, excuse me, I think Rotary's original intent was to do the splash pad. And I think now that the city has taken over that, I think the focus of the Rotary sort of has moved on to something that can be branded as a Rotary product. And so I think the pavilion is
I just
like that.
wanted
Because
some clarification on
Rotary's
that.
intention, I believe, was, and we've gotten pretty far along in the, relatively speaking, but to apply for one of the GOCO grants for matching funds for the splash pad. Yeah, because Rotary would never be able to afford the $250,000 project, but they originally had intended to come up with the matching funds to apply for the GOCO grant.
Another question, when we award this bid, will we have an opportunity to see what types of playground features specifically will be chosen for the playground?
Yeah, I think I shared with the council this week, but if you want a further breakout of that, I'll provide that to you.
Also, this year, will they also be tearing out that north parking lot as well?
No, that is not included in the 2017 budget. It is proposed for 2018, should the council adopt that.
Oh, we're
That phase two.
$180,000 under budget for Mountain View Park.
Well, until that work is done, we won't know the exact numbers. Plus, we'd like to get these 3 major improvements made before we know how much of a balance remains.
I
And then
thought
that
that-
can be applied to 2018,
I thought the North Road was part of Phase 1.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
part of phase
Is it-
2. These are the original items in your 2017 budget. After the master plan, there were a couple additional phases. The parking lot, the road work was part of phase 2. Rex has that scheduled for 2018.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say if there really truly is money left over from the Mountain View Park, I'd like to see that out.
Okay.
I have a couple
Go
comments.
ahead.
The proposed questions, I'm okay with all of them. I don't know if this is the final draft of them, but there's a couple of grammatical things in there that,
We'll correct those, we saw that.
That's going to be a
Okay.
separate item,
all right.
right?
Yeah, there's a few.
That's going to be
mi-
a separate item, too.
Okay.
Get-
And then, as far as the CMAQ funds, just a matter of clarification, the city's $107,000 share or matching funds for that, is that coming out of general fund,
We had it in the
2A
cap-
funds?
We had it in the capital fund as a separate
Okay,
item.
so it's not out of the $400,000 general maintenance either. Okay, so it's strictly, okay, perfect.
Because it's not a road restoration, it's a new road.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Meisner?
I at least had a question about the design. I don't know who to direct this to, but the design of the signs from whomever did those signs, did we get a release on that design? Or is there any protection on that design?
I'll have to follow up with the staff.
Does anybody recall that
It was
conversation?
a product that was produced for the city, so I'm assuming that's the product of the city. But I'll double check with the staff.
I just wouldn't want the sign to go up
Sure.
and there all of a sudden be a design issue with somebody having claims to that.
We'll verify that.
Talking
That was
about the
my-
DOLA, the students that designed it?
Yeah,
I think it would have to go back and look at that contract, but I think when they work for the city, then that
yeah, a
work
product of the city. Yeah. But we'll verify that for you.
Mr. Meisner?
Why aren't there any questions in here about the HR survey, or did I miss that?
HR, so are you referring to the citizen survey? Or the employee survey?
Employee survey.
Yeah. What would you like to know about the employee survey?
Well, are the questions in here?
No, they're the same question, 57 questions from last year, and they cover 8 categories. For example, performance standards, job satisfaction, staff development, communications, teamwork, leadership, benefits. As you know, last year, the most critical finding as far as an opportunity for improvement was our health plan, which the council overhauled. And I think the employees hopefully will reflect their appreciation, satisfaction with that. As in every year, there'll be new items that will rise to the top in need of work, so that's what we're going to find out. But it's the same instrument in order to allow us to benchmark against each of the years. And last year, we had 92% participation, which is very high. The national average for this survey, which there's been over 50,000 conducted, is 76%. So both our residents and our employees seem to have an interest in voicing their concerns and trying to improve both the organization and the community.
Is this random? Are the addresses from last year
Are you talking about
eliminated
the
from
citizen survey?
possibility?
Yeah, that's random. That's done through the post office. They basically pick every 10th household, and that's how that's done. And those go to 1,500 homes. A lot of people have mentioned in the past, wow, that doesn't seem like a lot. There are national surveys that use less than 1,000 respondents to determine national policy and issues. If it's done right, that's a significant amount of people contacted. And again, the most important thing is the margin of error, 4%. That means if you took the survey again, each of the responses would only vary plus or minus by 4%. That's pretty significant.
Okay, but it can include some of the addresses that were on the survey last year?
Yeah, there's certainly
So
the
it's completely
coincidence
random.
of someone getting the survey again. Probably not likely, but it's possible.
Thank you.
Give us the odds of that next meeting,
Okay.
Down to 2 decimal points.
4%.
But we're just thrilled that there's been such a high level of interest and participation. I mean, 39% may not sound like a lot for most people, but when you do a mail survey, the national average is in usually the 20th percentile. So we're almost twice that.
Ms. Smith?
Mayor, I'd like to move for the adoption of the agenda and consent agenda, but pulling items 5F, I, and J into the regular meeting agenda.
Pulling J,
5I.
you're pulling J too?
Pulling,
F, I, and J. Last 10 times?
Still second it.
okay. Does everyone understand that?
Where do we want
All
to
right.
insert them?
We're going to insert them as, following
Okay.
Tony's administrative report as 6A, 6B, and 6C. 6A will be Dawson Loan, 6B will be the citizen survey, and 6C will be the wayfinding sign.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay. Made and second, would you call the roll, please?
Member Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Weed,
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher,
Aye.
Councilmember Gill,
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, could we have the minister's report, please?
I was just going to highlight what Ashley did. If public wants to come out at 8:30 for the official kickoff of 2A. That's significance. First major road reconstruction in clearly 50 years at least. And, you know, the 2A committee should be recognized, and they'll be out there. And Kiowitz done an excellent job in communicating with the public. We have on our website for people to keep pace with the construction and know where it's taking place and how to get around it when that's required. But we're thrilled for the kickoff, and a lot of good work's going to be done this summer.
Just a
Mr.
comment
Messer?
or question. The 2A signs, how many of those do we get?
The thank you signs,
Well, I seen the 2A project sign.
oh, the original ones during the campaign?
No.
Oh.
It's a huge one.
Oh,
These
the
are
big
big
thank you,
ones.
yeah, it's the thank you sign. We have a number of those. They will be at the front and back of every major road construction project this
Is that
summer.
a 2A cost or city?
Partly, what was left of the 2A budget went to pay
The
for
signs?
those signs,
Yes.
and then some of the city paid for.
And the
rest.
city funds that were used for the 2A signs are not part of the 2A funding, is that correct? Yes,
Correct, that's correct.
thank you.
Okay, then the items that were pulled off the consent agenda, as I understand, are F, I, and J, or FI and J? Is that correct? Okay, do we want to discuss them in that order?
No, sure.
I is the
I
Dawson
first?
Ranch, it was pulled first.
So we'll discuss item I, as it was pulled off. That is for the Dawson Ranch stables. Would you like to have them step forward to the,
Yeah,
Or-
have them have a seat.
what?
Have them have
Oh,
a seat so they're
Come on up here and
comfortable.
sit down. Wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah, wherever you're
Okay.
comfortable, just don't feel obligated to stand in front of the mic.
So which council member would like to go first? Right now, we're talking about a 5-year repayment program. Is that satisfactory to you? Could you pull the mic over?
as long as the only thing that has changed in the original offer is just the term of the 3 years changing to the 5-year.
Okay,
If everything
Correct.
else is the same, then.
Yes.
Okay.
yes. Mr. Meisner?
Okay, so this is my concern. It appears that the way the agreement's written, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that we're essentially, upon execution of the agreement, going to give them $18,000?
Well, they have to verify it with invoices.
So if they give us an invoice for 1,000, we give them 1,000? That's stated.
Excuse me, a reimbursement. I mean, they have several major vendors. They have the sanitation district, and they have a plumber and an excavator. Those would be the parties that would get reimbursed. And our estimate was a maximum of $18,000.
I'm not an attorney, but I don't see that number 2, that's the way that reads. Can you clarify that, Miss Attorney?
Attorney.
Does that not, first statement, does that not say that we're going to give them $18,000 that needs to be used for a specific number of items?
I understand what you're saying. We can modify that to add in a little more language to, that amount is payable upon receipt of
Something.
an invoice for that amount of money.
I mean, the way I'm reading the first sentence of number 2 is that we're going to give them $18,000, hopefully that they would spend on those particular items, and it's no intention of mistrust, but the reality is we're giving them $18,000 of taxpayers' money, hoping that it would go for the items that's mentioned.
It's a reimbursement. Reimbursement means that you're reimbursed for something you possibly have spent.
That's not what the way it reads.
But it
that's
says
standard.
reimbursement. I mean, you can clarify it, but it does say reimbursement.
Whatever's council's pleasure.
Well, no, actually, I mean, you're right. It actually very explicitly says that
We're gonna give 'em $18,000?
Give them 18,000, and then if they don't spend that much, they have to repay it. That's in the middle of paragraph 2.
And if they're repaying it, why, that's not reimbursement in my logic.
Because if they didn't spend it, then it wouldn't be gone. You know, if they didn't spend it, they wouldn't have been given the money from the city.
Right, from what I read in that, it says the 18,000, if the amounts come in less, like on the plumber, we just had the state plumber show up, that's why we were late to the meeting, because he showed up right at the end here. And he's got to check his numbers now as to, or what is required. So if it's, in that agreement, it says that if the full 18,000 is not used, it will be given back to the city.
But if we're not giving it to you, why would you give it back to us? And I'm just going to reiterate this sentence. If the combined cost of the sewer tap and connection is less than the reimbursement amount, owner shall repay the balance. How can you repay something that you've never been given?
I understand what you're saying. The way that it reads, and I think it may be the only way that this works, but I'm not sure, is that the money is given to them up front, and then they have to prove how they've applied it. And I understand your concern, but I'm agreeing with you that that's the way it's laid out. And I
If
don't know.
that's the way that it is, I think that's an inappropriate use of taxpayer money.
Would it be easy enough to just say, submit the bills to the city and we'll pay them up to $18,000?
Do that.
Just something. I mean, what happens, with all due respect, they take the $18,000 and go to Las Vegas?
Well, this becomes a lien upon the
And we own
property, and which will.
stables?
Okay,
will
we have a
will-
lien, but we still have $18,000 of taxpayer money that was specifically intended for a purpose that didn't get used for that purpose. And if we do a reimbursement format, like most people are used to in businesses, then I don't have a problem with that. But just to give over $18,000, I can't support that.
Well, I'm okay if we do it, if we change the wording to be reimbursed based on invoices or receipts. It seems reasonable to me.
I mean,
That is in
doing it
here.
as a true reimbursement kind of defeats the whole purpose of doing this, because I don't have the money to pay for
Well,
it.
I mean, I think based on receipts shown, that either
Yeah.
we pay the bills or give them the money for that.
I mean, I don't even have a problem with that, that if they submit a bill from Fremont Sanitation District, that we pay it.
Okay,
But-
but the issue with that is Fremont Sanitation will not hook the sewer without $2,800 up front.
I don't have a problem with that.
That means
I mean, if
we'll
we
pay
pay-
the $2,800.
We
and
we
that
pay
goes
the
towards your account.
$2,800 to the sanitation district, and I don't have a problem with that.
Payment is to the third-party vendor, whether it's the sanitation district or a plumber or whatever's needed. It's to the
It's
third
going for
party.
the specific use that it's intended, is my point. And again, my intention is not to suggest mistrust on your part, but we are dealing with all of these people's money out here. And to just give you $18,000, I think is inappropriate.
On the other hand, if we give the plumber $11,000 and they go to Las Vegas, what do we do?
Right.
But hopefully, when we gave the plumber that, he'd already performed the job.
They usually
Sometimes
want money
they-
up front.
Yeah, they want the money up front. I mean,
Yeah.
the
That's
the
a- that's a
sanitation
deposit.
district, the
Third and third.
excavator that has already been there, the amount of work that has been done right now to this point is $5,100. They want it half down up front that we put out personally.
I don't have a problem with that.
So I agree with Tony, you know, you're saying to me that you don't want to trust me, but yet you're going to trust the excavator, or you're going to trust the plumber. You're going to hand over a big chunk of money to them. So I'm not understanding why you're saying I'm not trustworthy, but this other person is.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think that Mr. Meisner, Councilman Meisner, made it clear several times
I know.
that
I
it's
know.
not you.
I know.
It's the situation, and we're charged with the responsibility of making sure, if this goes through council,
Right.
that the money was spent properly. So you keep saying, I. It's not you, it's
Okay,
the
so
situation.
how do you handle, like Tony brought up, how do you handle the other people involved?
Everybody does it every day. But like I said, I mean, this is a special situation.
Yeah.
And please don't take it personally, because I know that he put that out there, you know, several times in his conversation. So it's not personal, it's just trying to be good stewards and making sure that we can cover everything that we can cover to protect the citizens of Canyon City's money. So it's not a personal thing, okay?
Well, I'd like to make it clear too, that this is not my way of doing this. You know, I wanted to try to work a different deal out, instead of what is on the table right now.
And-
But it wasn't, it was not acceptable. So this is the route that it's.
And I support this concept, and Tony and I and the mayor had some brief conversations about this concept. But the other concern I have is that we're setting a precedence with giving a private enterprise taxpayer money as a loan.
Right, and like I said, I did not bring this idea to the table.
And we're doing that by our choice and our
Yes.
direction. And if we're going to do that, I think we just need to be really careful and prudent in terms of how we handle that money.
Smith?
Mayor, Councilman Meisner, actually the concept of giving loans to private companies is not a unique concept. When studying for the Downtown Development Authority, some authorities use taxpayer money to offer low interest rate loans to businesses so that they can make upgrades to their businesses and still be able to be operable and competitive in the market. And so it might be new to Canyon City, this concept, but it's not new overall.
If we had a program in place that specifically addressed those things, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but we don't. We're talking about a unique situation. We can move forward
We
with
need to
something.
go forward.
Mr. Mayor, could
Yes.
we set it up like we did the payment to FCTC, where they bring in the bill and we give a check to the invoice that they bring in? And could your plumber not invoice you like in third, and third to get his money, deposit and halfway through and a final payment?
Would
Can
the third-party thing not work? That if they've got an invoice or a bill from Fremont Sanitation, that we pay the $5,100 to Fremont Sanitation.
That's what it says in here as far as I read it. Owner, now lost my thumb. Owner shall provide the city with receipts showing the amounts paid by owner to Fremont Sanitation District licensed plumber for sewer tap and connection within 30 days of execution of this agreement. It says that in there that they have to produce the receipts. And if we make the checks out to the third party on the invoices that they give the Williams, is that not responsible enough? Like building a new house, the contractor gets a third up front, a third halfway through, and a third at the end.
Let's go back to the original concept. How much money are we going to give them when we sign the agreement?
Nothing, not until they turn in a
They
receipt.
turn in receipts or invoices.
Is that your understanding? Yes. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay. What it reads.
It's reimbursement. I think we started here. Let's go forward. Do we want to modify this or take it off? This is a 5-year, correct? And go forward with this agreement that we have here. Do you want to modify the wording in some fashion?
One thing though, I guess, how is this gonna reflect on the repayment? You know, we're talking about a 5-year, and it was the 18,000 with the interest on there. And now if I'm bringing it to you in sections, I guess it's all still gonna be combined, no matter if it's less than the 18,000. I mean, we're gonna just combine all the
Invoices, yes,
and
yes.
then take that amount
Yeah.
at the end and refigure
Right.
everything.
Yes.
Yes.
We're giving you the worst-case scenario, the maximum amount of loan. It's most likely going to be less. We recognize that. And then once you get the final invoices, we'll have a final payment sheet for you.
Okay.
As it is now, this will work out to $300 a month. And I know that was a concern of yours, and I think that makes it more achievable for
Right.
you. And realizes the city's interest, which is to get the sanitation hookup and to meet your special review use conditions.
Okay. We on board with that? Do I need a motion then? Would like to make a motion to approve this? Is that what we're doing?
Mayor,
Ms.
I'll make the
Schumacher?
motion that we authorize the mayor's signature on an economic development loan agreement with Dawson Ranch Stables for a maximum of $18,000 payable upon receipt or invoice. Does that make it better for everybody?
5 years.
Term of 5 years, sorry.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Dennis second.
Second, Dennis?
I did.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Okay, would you call the roll,
I would
please?
just like to make a brief comment that the Williams have been an upstanding business in our community. I really appreciate all the good things that they have done for Canyon City. Whenever there's something going on in town or work that needs to be done, you guys are there. And we really appreciate what you do, and I want it to be known that for upstanding businesses, and when there's problems that arise, we do want to try and be creative to help businesses the best we can, and this is an example of that.
Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher.
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Member Gill.
Nay.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Approved by majority vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Tony.
You can come in tomorrow morning and see Kathy. Oh, that's right, you got to see her now.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we did I.
We got F and J.
We have F.
We got B and C.
Okay, the citizen survey, let's cover that one. Seems like Ms. Smith brought that up. Would you like to take it from there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to have a little bit further discussion on the questions. Like Councilman Weed, I appreciated most of the questions on here, all of them under number 1, particularly because they help reinforce our 5-year strategy and the things that we want to see to have done in the next 5 years. However, numbers 2 and 3 are not included in our 5-year strategy, and I feel like they are a distraction to the things that we're trying to accomplish in Canyon City. And I would like to make a movement that 2 and 3 both be removed, particularly because this question has become before our voters in a legal election and has already been decided upon within the last 3 years.
Would you mind reading those two so the audience can hear what you're talking about?
Questions number 2 and 3 in the citizen survey have to do with residential or recreational marijuana grows and sells.
Okay. And they've been decided anyway.
They've already made that decision 3 years ago to the voters.
Okay.
And I think it's a distraction to the things that we're trying to accomplish within the next 5 years in our 5-year strategy. I could expound further if needed.
It
So if we,
doesn't- Where does it say that? In the questions I have, it's not mentioned.
It is the very end of the survey. There's not a page number on it. Well, go ahead and look, okay. So go on 5F, and the very next page, it has the questions. So the first set of questions have to do with
Oh,
things
okay.
like
Okay.
an aquatic and fitness center with a taxpayer
Yeah,
increase,
I told Denise
or
about that.
rehabilitating the district pool, US 50 aesthetics or pedestrian safety crossings. Is there support for connecting a trail from Florence to Mackenzie, things like that. Those are all in our 5-year strategy, things that we've discussed in our vision for the Canyon City in the next 5 years. However, number 2 and 3 with recreational marijuana is not. I think it would be disrespectful to our citizens to turn around and reopen up this issue when it's already been decided upon.
Okay, I saw that as an example, but I've been reading off of this, which is a 2017 survey, and it wasn't on there. That's why I was asking.
I am going to respectfully disagree. It's, I think when the question of recreational marijuana sales came up, and this was at least 4 years ago, because I think I was the only one on council who was on council at that time.
I believe 2014.
Doesn't matter.
I was highly involved in that issue.
Yeah, in any event, I think it was relatively close. It seems like I remember it went 55-45 or something like that.
It was over 60% were against. Clear majority declined recreational marijuana in Canyon City, as well as in Florence in last year's election. Their city council, I recall, was quite excited at the idea of recreational marijuana, and it was soundly defeated once again just last year in Florence. I just don't think there's a taste for that in Fremont County.
Well, I'd be curious to see if that opinion has changed. It's, I mean, if you follow the stuff written about it in at least in the Gazette in the Springs, the Gazette editorial board was adamantly opposed to any kind of marijuana activity in Colorado Springs, and they've kind of softened their tone. And I think statewide, there's a lot of legislators and judicial people who initially were very opposed to the sale of marijuana. But the most recent thing I said, and it was unclear whether that the state is generating $100 million a month in taxes from the sale of marijuana. And I mean, when this first came up, I was pretty outspoken about the fact that I think we're missing the boat. I mean, just because we don't sell it here doesn't mean that people here aren't buying it. They're just driving to Pueblo and Salida and every place else to buy it. And we don't benefit from the taxes. That's like sending, it's kind of the same as saying, go buy your cars in Pueblo.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. And as far as the question of are we missing out on potential taxpayer money, this question came up actually in 2A last year for the election, where a group of people said, well, if we would have voted for recreational marijuana, we could have paid enough money to fix all of our streets. So in response to that, we asked Harry Patel, our finance director, to do some research on other cities and municipalities who have recreational marijuana sales and how much money they're generating in their communities. And we actually found, quite surprisingly, that very few cities are generating significant amounts of money from the recreational marijuana. Some are just barely making more. Quite a few cities actually will not divulge what their finances are. And so statistically speaking, it's not necessarily true that if we adopt recreational marijuana that all of a sudden we'll be making a lot of money. I would also like to point out that in the Homeless Coalition, although this is not evidence-based data, we have had a lot of homelessness come into Canyon City, and it was asked by some members of homeless people who were attending the coalition as representatives if marijuana has had an impact in them moving to Canyon City. And the gentleman stated that actually a lot of the people that he knew on the streets had chosen to leave Canyon City because we do not have recreational marijuana. That's a significant thing to consider because the cost of homelessness is quite large in our community, and the more we embrace it, we already have statewide as far as our health goes and our substance abuse, we are considered in the dark red for heroin, for substance abuse, for tobacco, and marijuana, enough so that we have garnered significant grant money to combat marijuana use among our youth. And as we embrace, the more substances we embrace as a community, the more our children will embrace it as well, and they're the ones that are also harmed. And I would say, you know, he said maybe people's opinions are changing in the community, but with Florence's resounding vote against it just last year, I'm thinking maybe we're not quite to that level yet.
And I don't disagree with anything you've said, but we're not asking the citizens to approve it. We're asking their opinion, which is kind of what this whole thing is. And it's opinions. We're asking a lot of the same questions we asked last year because we want to see if there is a trend or a change in opinions. This is an opinion poll, not, like I said, we're not asking, and it still comes to council, and we'll still discuss it.
Well, I feel like we already got their opinion recently, and it's a disrespect to them to go back to them already against it. I think Mayor, would like to move to vote to, I'd like to make a movement for, just where council stands on 5F, to go ahead with the citizen survey, but with the removal of questions 2 and 3.
So the motion is to go ahead with the citizen survey. We're removing questions 2 and 3.
I'll second that.
Made second. Do a discussion on that motion. Right?
Okay, you know, I look at it this way, you know, I know people are going to say it's a survey. We did the survey once and we got the results. So we do another survey and say the results come back. Then we do another. We can do enough surveys until finally they say, we're tired of the surveys, let's go ahead and say it's okay. I do not want to see Canyon City. I think what we have right now with regard to both medical and recreational marijuana is sufficient. I do not want to see Canyon City become another Pueblo. Okay? They have not really benefited by what they've done up there. They've actually had more problems with it because of the things they've done. And I think just because we say, well, if we don't get it here, they'll go there. Well, let them go there. I'd rather them go to Pueblo to get it than have it available here. Okay. I don't want Canyon City to become another Pueblo. What we have right now is sufficient. And we can't keep saying, well, we're losing money. Why do we always have to say we're losing money for this and we're losing money for that? When this recreational marijuana came through, okay, it was put to the fact that all this money is going to go for schools and this and that and everything else. Well, guess what? The schools are still struggling, even though they're getting money from it. So, you know, the dollar thing, I think, is ridiculous. Let's look at the human being thing with regards to marijuana. I don't have a problem with medical marijuana. I don't have a problem with what we have established right now with regard to recreational marijuana. Let's leave it alone.
Okay, thank you, Frank. We're getting a little far afield here, I think, but any other comments?
It's an opinion, not
It was an opinion.
regulation that we're doing.
Yep, this is an opinion poll. Mr. Meisner?
No, let's get going.
Okay.
I just need to clarify, if I vote yes, am I saying we're taking them out?
Yes, the motion is to take them out. If you vote yes, those 2 questions will be taken out of the
I'm ready to
citizen
vote.
survey. Are we ready to vote? Would you call the roll, please?
Smith, sorry.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Yes.
Councilmember Weed.
No.
Councilmember Gill,
Yes.
Councilmember Schumacher,
No.
Councilmember Meisner.
No.
I vote, Mr. Mayor.
I finally get to vote.
Finally got one.
Thank you so.
Christmas
I,
comes early.
I understand.
You're gonna win.
I think the last mayor had to wait 2 terms to have to do this.
Never voted.
I think it's my point that it's a controversial issue. It's a
Well,
distraction.
here's my thinking on it. I think that it's just too soon. I think if you're going to do it, we could put that question in next time, next year. We just had one this year. I'm in favor of, I don't want it in there. Take it out.
So your vote is aye.
Aye.
Approved by majority vote.
Okay, let's move on to J. C?
6C, wayfinding.
Let me,
No.
Jay.
don't we have to, actually have to approve that, or do we not? We, no, the motion was to remove those items.
Do the survey
With
with
them,
okay.
that's why we're removing it.
All right, I'll buy that, I guess.
No, J is the wayfinding.
By Jay.
What was the question on the wayfinding here? Is that controversial as well or not? What?
Wanted the bridge or not.
Yeah, I just wanted Mark to have his chance to give his say about, or a little discussion if we wanted it with the bridge or without the bridge on the wayfinding signs.
That wasn't in here. That was just that was the signage just approved the plan, not the concept of it, was it?
It was to prove the concept of which sign. We needed to choose which
Oh.
one so we could move forward.
Is that true? Are you reading?
Yeah,
So, the point of discussion is the sign with or without the bridge. Is that correct? I don't think there's any debate on the sign itself.
Everyone loved the overall concept, was whether you wanted to include the detail of the bridge.
So whether we want the detail of the bridge to be put in there, has everybody seen
I
the,
got it.
with the detail in there? Are we seeking a motion for whether we put the bridge in there or not?
Why don't we just do a quick poll and
I
Mr.
thought it would be a good idea because once again, it's a Royal Gorge Bridge. I mean, I think the sign is beautiful with it. I think the sign is beautiful without it. Personal opinion.
I think it's an iconic part of, I mean, I really, really like, I don't like the middle one. I think it's too busy, that bridge, but I think the simple line drawing of the bridge, and I think it's iconic representation.
Just a quick question.
Just a silhouette. Yeah.
If the council chose to use it with the bridge, do you think that that the gorge needs to go all the way down to the river, though, to make it
That's what I said.
accurate? Otherwise, people are going to say,
Yeah,
it needs to.
because it's
actually
over
be-
the river.
And then I don't know if I'd like
Say
it as
this
much.
again?
Yeah, it's gonna change it.
Yep,
She's talking
it
about
does.
this gorge. If we took this one, the gorge went all the way down to the river.
Okay, where's Steve? There she is.
If I may.
Please,
Please.
help us.
Please do, we'll be here all night. Go ahead.
Dina Zvetla, Community Development Director. So just to remind everybody, so as was mentioned, the general design of the sign was approved or motioned forward from council the last time you met. And you had requested just seeing a very high-level concept of what it might look like to have some sort of symbol of the bridge incorporated. And so those are the graphics in front of you this evening. Remember that overall, this is still very much a concept drawing. So this will go to designers that will complete a very detailed design that can actually be constructed. So even if you did elect to move forward a concept with a bridge symbol in it, it may still look different than any of what you see in front of you this evening.
But the recommendation at this point came from committee, didn't come from council.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm not sure about the process, but I did note in the memo, so I don't know if this was circulated afterwards, but the committee's recommendation was to not include the bridge emblem or signal.
Right. That's correct. So if you approve this, it goes back for concept design, and if the design were to put a bridge in to see what it looked like, that could occur too, or not.
I think what we simply need is whether you want to incorporate the image in the design, and we can always bring back the final design, but we need to know whether a bridge should be included at all.
Okay, let's start down here and we'll go around. What do you think, Mr. Gill? Let's come on, Mr. Meisner and Ms. Smith and,
I mean, I'd like to see the bridge in it. Okay, is it that important to me? No. We formed the committees for a reason, and we have to respect their opinions. So, like I said, I'd still like to see the sign, or I'm sorry, the bridge.
okay? Ms. Meisner?
I like the design, but if we could incorporate the bridge without distracting from the sign, I'd support that. That's
Yes.
probably a conflicting statement.
Ms. Smith?
Covering his bases.
I think this sign will be beautiful either way. I would just probably recommend if we move forward with the bridge that it's geographically accurate or geologically accurate.
I prefer not to have the bridge in there. Ms. Weed?
I can assure you, there's lots of places where you can see the bridge and the river, but you can't see them both at the same time in the same place. So it's, the fact that that doesn't go down to the river is not disturbing to me. But I agree with, I'd like, this is going to further design. I'd like to see them at least try to incorporate some version of the bridge in it. But if it's not there, I'm not going to be heartbroken, because
Same here.
I think the top one is a spectacular sign as well, so.
No bridge.
Okay, Mr. Dorcas?
I think we should go with the committees. They did all the work, and they said no bridge. I think no bridge.
Well, there you go, unequivocal ambivalence. Okay. We're really not ready for comments, okay? We're going to go ahead with, okay, Lisa.
All I want to say is we didn't necessarily say we didn't want the bridge. What we said was we thought the lines were cleaner without it. That was all.
I think we said that. Okay, thank you. We have a tie.
The mayor gets to vote again.
No one's really definite.
No, he already said no.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
The mayor did vote.
I don't,
yeses?
I said no.
Well, I could get, Ashley
said
was
no.
kind
I
of
said no.
both.
He said no, I said no.
I have Mark, Dennis, and Jim with the bridge. I have Preston, Kathy, and Frank. We're definite, with no bridge. And Ashley, I kind of got, she's still looking at him like this.
I'm okay looking ahead to a bridge. And I think maybe we can start this discussion further as the
Okay.
signs develop.
Good. Need a motion?
I think since I started this mess.
Yes, Mr. Gill, please.
Okay, I don't know exactly how to do the motion, but I make a motion that we approve it with, send it to design and bring it both ways, with and without the bridge. Is that
Second.
good enough
That's what we
for,
got now.
That's what we've got right now.
Not going to be radically different.
with the bridge? I'm sorry.
The bridge, with final review and approval of the
Approval by
final-
city, by council.
I still say.
Second, Mr. Weed. I think we've had well enough discussion on that. Let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Nay.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
No.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by majority vote.
Okay, let's go on to number 7, ordinance number 14, series 2017. This is the second reading of an ordinance increasing the compensation of the mayor and members of council. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 14, series of 2017, an ordinance increasing the compensation of the mayor and other members of city council.
Could I have a motion and a second? Weed.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, I make the motion to approve ordinance number 14, series of 2017 on second reading.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, number 8 is ordinance number 15, series 2017. This is second reading, an ordinance defining building official under the IRC. Could you read by title, please?
Bill for ordinance number 15, series of 2017, an ordinance amending section 15.06.030C of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning the appointed building official under the International Residential Code.
Could I have a motion and a second from council? Ms. Smith?
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 15, series of 2017 upon second reading.
A second.
Mr. Gill, any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, would you call a roll, please?
Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, number 9, ordinance number 16, series 2017. This is a second reading as well. And it's an ordinance defining building official under the UCADB. Would you read it by title, please?
Bill for ordinance number 16, series of 2017, and ordinance amending section 8.40.030D of the Canyon City Municipal Code regarding appointed officials under the Uniform Code for the abatement of dangerous buildings.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve ordinance number 16, series of 2017, on second reading.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Would you call roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Number 10 is an ordinance number 17, series 2017. This is the first reading, an ordinance adding a new definition of city administrator under chapter 8.32. Would you, this is the first reading.
Second reading, sorry.
Oh, I have first reading. Okay, second reading. Okay. Would you read my title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 17, series of 2017, and ordinance amending section 8.32.010 of the Canyon City Municipal Code by the addition of a new definition for city administrator. Sorry.
Could I have a motion and a second? Mr. Gill.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 17, series of 2017 on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would you call a roll, please?
Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkes?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Well, we finally get to the fun part of the evening. Number 11, this is a public hearing for application for a special event liquor permit. This is for Fremont County of the Arts, Center of the Arts. This is for July the 8th, August the 12th at Macon Plaza. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Could I have a report from the city clerk, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These two gentlemen are here representing the Fremont Center for the Arts, who has applied for this council for 2 special event liquor permits for July 8th and August 12th. If you notice the application, they have now canceled that September event. So you may see some of the conflicting stuff in your packet, but note that the September event has been canceled. This will be for their Shakespeare in the Park events. These events are scheduled the second Saturday of each month between 5:30 and 9 p.m. in Macon Plaza. Notice of this public hearing was given by posting the location in the plaza. These events are being presented to invite locals and visitors down to the downtown area, as well as a fundraiser for the organization. The entire plaza will not be licensed for alcohol sales or consumption, as they will have a small beer garden in which beer and wine will be served and consumed. Sandwiches and snacks will be available during this time when alcohol is being served. There will be only one point of entry where IDs will be checked by trained volunteers, and those of legal drinking age will be allowed to enter. Many volunteers from the center have attended training and will assist in patrolling the event. FCA has conducted a number of these events in the past with no resulting concerns. An on-site inspection of the premises will be conducted on each day of each event, and once all the requirements have been fulfilled, the permit would be issued. Please note that they have changed a little bit of the diagram. They are going to reduce the size of the beer garden, so there is no concerns that I would see in that they will be moving it toward the sculpture garden, and it's probably half, at least half the size of what they originally have put on that diagram. So I have no concerns with that either. So upon review, the appropriate fees have been submitted. The diagram does meet the requirements. The applicant has control of premises through a park use permit. It's been signed, and the corporation is in good standing with the Secretary of State's office.
Okay,
That
any
I'd open it up to any questions you may have of these two gentlemen.
questions of the applicant? Yes, ma'am?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Are you familiar with the Colorado Liquor Code?
Yes.
Is there a copy of the liquor code on file with your organization?
Yes, there is.
And how many volunteers do you plan on having for this event?
Probably 6 or fewer.
How will they be trained on the liquor code and liquor laws?
Everyone that's volunteered has attended the city's liquor training.
Are you fully aware that you're responsible for compliance with the Colorado Liquor Code? Colorado Liquor Code, and that any violations of this code may be held against you and/or your organization as well as future licensing?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, most of my speech has already been removed from what I might have said, and thank you for reading it all off for us. But my lords and ladies of the council, we do humbly stand before you on this fine midsummer's eve and ask, as a roving band of minstrels who create art upon the village green, the green which sits betwixt the Fremont Center for the Arts and the library, our fine city library, the green which will be used for a play about love, a play about a play within a play, and we who lay the play do pray today that you, who hath the power to grant license for a garden, that we may sell the mead of the north, the nectar of the gods, which you may know better as beer. The green, which represents the city-state of Athens and the forest beyond, but which you may know as Macon Plaza. We do humbly ask that as we raise funds for the Fremont Center for the Arts, that this be one matter in which we do. That's all I got.
Thank you.
I kind of made it up in the last 10 minutes.
We'll just add that it's free. Admission is free. There is a beer garden that only those of age with verified IDs will be able to attend. Now, the first one we had 2 weeks ago was kind of impromptu. We had 4 weeks to rehearse. We had 90 citizens participate. There was no cost at all to the Art Center. It was completely privately funded, and we raised $270 in the span of about 10 minutes. So we imagine that the alcohol might raise that bar just a little bit.
The production the show runs just shy of 3 hours.
Wow.
We start at 6 p.m. We finish just before 9 p.m. And again, it'll be the second Saturdays of the month. The month's named after our great Caesars, Julius and Augustus.
Wow.
Do you guys have a
Thank
spot
you.
there we could do donations? If people want to donate?
We actually, there are 2 intermissions throughout the course of the show, and we have asked, the last month that we did it, we asked for cash donations during both intermissions, which was a total of 10 minutes.
Good. Mr. Meisner?
On a slightly serious note, in a different tone of voice, I have to ask that you seriously have a procedure in place and training to ensure that your servers are not over-serving.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any comments of council?
I'd just like to thank you for putting on this performance at the park, and for tonight too. Can you come every night? But I'm really excited about the Midsummer's Night Dream coming to Canyon City during the
Excited to
summer.
be
It's
doing it.
fantastic.
It's a lot of
and
fun.
I wish you great luck and success.
Great, thank you all. Any comments from the audience at this time? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Can I have a motion in a second? Mr. Meisner?
Where am I at here? Mayor and council, I move that we approve the application for a special event liquor permit for the Fremont Center for the Arts at Macon Plaza July 8th and August 12th.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
I can say no to that, aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Approved by
Thank you.
unanimous.
Free admission to council members and mayor.
Oh, good. Good to hear that.
And the rest
Thank
of the
you.
citizens, correct?
All right. Let's move on to number 12. This is ordinance number 18, the series of 2017. This is the first reading. Am I correct? Good.
That one's correct.
That's correct. Good. An ordinance adding chapter 2.78 entitled Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council. I will need 3 individuals to introduce. Mr. Weed, Mr. Jaquez, and Mr. Gill. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 18, series of 2017, an ordinance amending the Canyon City Municipal Code by the addition of a chapter 2.78 entitled Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council.
Could I report from the city administrator, please?
Yes, Mayor, in late March, Chairman of the FCTC, who's here, Steve Caverman, County Commissioner Dwayne McFall, and other members of the FCT and interested tourist industry representatives met to examine how to increase revenue in order to invest more in tourism promotion and marketing to benefit not only the city, but more importantly, the Royal Gorge region that we're in. The staff was at the second meeting with Councilmember Kathy, and then Ashley joined in. We had probably another 7 or 8 meetings from that point on. There are 2 different routes. The memo explains the first, more traditional route of how to create a local marketing district. Thanks to Corey's research, as a home rule authority, the city has empowered to levy a tax for the purpose of advertising and marketing, and they can create their own local marketing district without going through a petition process. So it really has expedited the process. One of our concerns is to be competitive, we need to do things sooner than later. If the county were to pursue this on their own, they couldn't get this on the ballot for another year. We can get it on the ballot if you decide to do so this November. That's a huge strategic advantage. The case for the local marketing district, clearly there have been good strides made in the last couple of years under the Fremont County Tourism Council. What they're lacking, though, are resources. They have a $200,000 budget, which pales in comparison to our surrounding competitors. For example, Salida, which is 1/3 our size, has a budget of $580,000. Alamosa has a budget of $650,000. Durango, $985,000. Estes Park, $1.8 million. Gunnison and Crested Butte combined, $1.9 million. Vail, just for the sake of laughs, $3.75 million. We're simply not competitive in the arena of attracting destination guests to our region, and we have lots to offer. That is one of our strengths. That's one of our assets. But we simply haven't had the voice and the branding to attract more guests because of the limited resources that have been generated by the county's 2% lodging tax. To that end, what we're proposing is several things. One, the creation of a 9-member council that will be made up of 3 lodging members, and we have some in the House. In fact, of the people, we've got 6 lodging entities that would like to be on this council to represent their commitment and interest in this endeavor. 3, what I would call more general tourist industry representatives, 1 designated representative from the Royal Gorge Bridge, 1 designated representative from the train, and 1 from the outdoor activity industry. Their job would simply be to coordinate and manage the tourism marketing promotion for both the city and the Royal Gorge region. They would do so with a proposed 5% tax on lodging within the city that include hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, VBRs. That would generate approximately $300,000. The key is the city would propose to match this amount. And the issue is one of equity. And the lodgers make a very good point. Yes, they benefit from tourism, but they should not bear the full burden of the revenue needed to promote tourism. Other members of this community, particularly the business community, benefit too. restaurants, retail, gas stations, I could go down the list, outdoor activity entities. So we propose to match that $300,000 through the general fund. Again, 62% of our revenue comes from the sales tax, much of it from tourism. So it just makes sense that we could match that amount. That would give us a $600,000 budget, consistent with people like Alamosa and Salida. Doesn't get us where we ultimately need to be, but it's a tripling of our efforts, would be significant. It would raise the combined sales lodging tax in Canyon City from 10.4% to 13.4%. That's significant, that's high, but Alamosa, Gunnison, Crested Butte are all higher. Those are direct competitors, and they have demonstrated significant return on investment. I think we provide you that information so we don't have to review that again. The ballot measure we propose for this November 7th, and we'd need a committee similar to the committee that Ashley formed with 2A to educate and inform the public that this is an important tax to generate business for our community, but the burden of the tax largely falls on those coming into the community, not the residents of this community, but the visitors and guests of this community. So that's important. And we also would recommend that if you were to pass this, that we would advertise for these positions so that you could make appointments as early as July the 17th, because we really have to get going to get the word out and not take it for granted that this measure is going to pass. We want it to be successful. The committee would also have to formulate a marketing plan, an operating plan, and a budget by early September so that when the measure does pass, we can pull the trigger. Most of the commitments of any tourist organization are in the beginning of the year, especially in this community, since a lion's share of our tourism is seasonal, summer predominantly. So we have to place advertising and take marketing steps in the winter months to prime the pump for the summer. So the city would have to basically up front probably the entire $600,000 in January with a reimbursement coming back from the sales tax later in the year. Most of their revenues are achieved usually by October, November because of the summer months. That's kind of a capsulated description of what we're trying to accomplish here. I know we have Steve Caverman here who can speak on behalf of the current council, and we have members of the lodging community if you'd like to listen to them.
Okay. Is it okay we'll have Steve talk? Would you like to talk to address council, please? And gentlemen here, did you want to just?
Steve?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm prepared
Stand
to
by.
respond to any particular questions you might have.
Does everybody know Steve Cameron?
Yeah. you know
Okay.
me. I will say, in my capacity as the chairman of the Fremont County Tourism Council, that the council voted in March, as Tony said, to initiate this effort to kind of examine ways of increasing our revenue from lodging tax. Our initial meetings, we quickly learned that in order for the county to do it, it would have to be in 2018. It has to go on a general election ballot. This is not a general election year. So it would have to be deferred until 2018. Moreover, we also discovered in some of our early discussions that in order to get it on the ballot in 2018, it requires a petition process through which you have to gain approval of 50% of the appraised property value of all commercial properties in the county. So that's a rather arduous process, which could run into tens of thousands of dollars to conduct that kind of a petition process. Identify specifically who, for Walmart Corporation, for instance, as one of our large commercial entities in the county, would be authorized to sign that petition. It's not Lori Hall, who is the general manager of the store here in Canyon City. So those kinds of details would add a lot of time, add a lot of expense. So we began looking for other alternatives, and that's when Tony kind of examined the possibility of using the city's home rule authority to put this before voters as an ordinance with council's approval and of course, public hearings to go along with that before first and second readings of a proposed ordinance. But that could potentially expedite this process and put it before voters as soon as November of 2017. Tony's correct. We are way behind with this year we have, in round numbers, $200,000, so about $100,000 per percentage point of our current 2% lodging tax. Round numbers, again, it generates about $100,000 per point. That is currently split about 50-50 between the city and the county. That is, city properties collect about half that amount, county properties collect about half that amount. Not exact split, but it's pretty darn close, within a few percentage points. We have also been able to gain some headway with additional grants and things. This year, we've actually been able to add about 30% to our budget through grants and gifts and things, including the $25,000 that the city supported the Tourism Council with earlier this year. So we have about $300,000 to work with this year. That's very tenuous. Those gifts and grants can come and go, and next year we could be back to $200,000. As you can see from the report, from the memo that Tony prepared for you, we're not even close to comparing with communities like Alamosa, a community half our size with essentially one destination, the Great Sand Dunes National Monument. To take nothing away from the beautiful San Luis Valley and Alamosa, we have a lot more to offer. And if you look at Gunnison, if you look at Durango, if you look at Glenwood Springs, pretty much any community in the state, we are simply not playing on the same ball field that they are. And the only solution is to increase lodging tax. I think it's innovative that Tony has suggested the city match lodging tax revenue with general fund revenue. We have talked to the county about doing the same thing. They are remaining rather still at this point, and have indicated that they would like to see the city council enact this ordinance and put this issue forward, move this issue forward, at which time they would be interested in engaging in a more robust discussion about what exactly a intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county might look like in terms of jointly managing the Fremont County Tourism Council or Fremont County Tourism Authority. Ultimately, I think that's what we really need to do. It's foolish, it's inefficient, it's just plain dumb to have two different organizations drawing on two different cash flows going in parallel directions, trying to accomplish the same thing, neither one of them without really enough money to do it. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. So the prospect of being able to increase city revenue and raise $300,000 in a lodging tax, match that with another $300,000, add $100,000, even if the county were to do nothing else other than just add the money that they currently are collecting at 2% for county properties outside the city limits of Canyon City, we pretty quickly have about $700,000 to spend or invest. And I really want to stress that. It's really not an expenditure. In 2014, following the Royal Gorge fire, we took a gift or a grant from the Economic Development Corporation, and we actually demonstrated then that for every dollar we invested in paid advertising, over $7 was returned to the community in additional spending. That's additional tax revenue through retail sales taxes. That's a pretty good return on investment. I would take that deal in my personal portfolio, and I think any of you would as well. The state has demonstrated a much greater return on investment. Of course, they're playing with a bigger deck than we are. Their latest statistics for 2016 was for every dollar they invested in paid advertising, that's the Colorado Tourism Office, $479 in visitor spending came back into the state. So tourism pays. There's no doubt about it. It has a residual effect not only on tourism-related businesses, but on virtually any kind of business you can name, from tire stores to retail stores to gasoline stations to grocery stores and the retailers up and down Main Street. It also prompts decisions about where to live, where to go to school, where to retire, where to buy a home, where to start a business. All of those kinds of decisions are influenced by tourists coming to this area and looking at this community oftentimes for the first time. And I don't hear too many bad things about this community from the first people coming here and seeing it for the first time. I work as a tour guide locally. I deal with literally hundreds of people in that capacity every year locally, and I am consistently amazed at how surprised people are with the variety and quality of things there are to do here. Just last week, I hosted the new director of the Colorado Tourism Office of Agritourism and Heritage, or Heritage and Agritourism, here for a 1.5-day visit, and I think her 1.5 day look at this community blew her away. So this is a very good idea. I encourage you to support it. I encourage you to move this forward. I will continue to lobby our county commissioners and our county manager to get on board and join the discussion. I think they will. I'm not quite sure the reasons for their reticence at this point, but I think once they see the good that can come of combining efforts, combining cash flow from two different cash flows or two different lodging taxes, again, one in the county, one in the city, I think we can accomplish some very good things. We can overcome some of the criticism we've had that we don't move the needle enough or fast enough, that we're ineffectual or that we're not spending money wisely. I would strongly disagree with that. We've got lots of indications to indicate that is not true. That may be anecdotally interesting, but it's not true. And it's mainly because, as Tony mentioned earlier, we simply don't have enough money to spend. When our competitors are spending hundreds of thousands, not tens of hundreds of thousands, but $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 a year, and we're spending $200,000, it's like putting low octane gas in your car. Okay, you're just not going to go very fast. Okay, maybe add a little water, a little sugar, just to really mess up the mix. Okay, that's kind of what we have. We have a gas tank full of gas and water. We need one with some high octane fuel, and I think we can do that with this program.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Are there any other questions of Steve? There's a gentleman, Mr. Meissner.
I don't know who answers this, Tony, Steve. So the 2% county tax, if this whole process were approved and our city tax were approved, what happens to the 2% county tax? What are they?
It would go away within the city. The city.
Right, but what about the county?
They would still collect 2% outside of the city. They could still collect that, and as Stephen mentioned, they'll collect generally about $100,000. But under state statute, if a city can preempt a county tax, so that would be removed. So the net increase to the lodging community is 3%. That's why we would go from a combined sales lodging tax of 10.4% on our guests to 13.4%.
And that's an important item to stress also,
Yeah.
Councilmember Meissner, and that this is not really a tax on residents. This is a tax on visitors to the community. And this is a type of financing mechanism that is widely used throughout the state and throughout the nation for funding tourism promotions.
Well, there'll be some locals that will partake in our lodges, whether it's special groups, events, so it won't all be outsiders, but clearly the majority are outside this community. And that's why it's been used as a vehicle, not only statewide, but nationally, as the best measure to generate marketing dollars. But where we're different is this proposal to match that amount with the general funds, because as Stephen mentioned, there are many other businesses that directly benefit but aren't contributing to the cause.
Okay.
We'd also, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm still not understanding. The county given us any indication that if we move forward with this, what are they going to do with that 2%, or what's their obligation to do with that 2%? Do they keep it and use it as they see fit?
Well, it's restricted to marketing tourism. As Steve had mentioned, it would seem illogical to have a $100,000 campaign. We had been working closely with them, believing they would simply contribute in this common pot. And it's still possible. I think they took a time out the last 2 weeks and simply said, go ahead, pass this, and let's sit down and work on an intergovernmental agreement. They just wanted to see the final product being proposed and hopefully adopted by the council. But I think they're close to, at the minimum, contributing that $100,000. If not matching it.
I have a note here before me from Council, or from Commissioner McFall, and I'll just read from it if you don't mind for a moment. It's very short. So the commissioners, county attorney, and county manager can, upon completion of a meeting this morning, this note is dated June 14th. That's a week ago, or almost a week ago tomorrow, or rather a week ago Wednesday. So June 14th. Upon completion of the meeting this morning, have come to the following conclusion. When the City of Canyon City has final approval from City Council to form a local marketing district, we will then be willing to meet with City Council along with our attorney to work out an IGA that we can all agree to. This effort would be more advanced with both parties working together to form a marketing district or a local marketing district. We all agree that a local marketing district would benefit the entire region and are open to roundtable discussions. That sounds like they're open to roundtable discussions to me.
Okay. There's a gentleman, thank you, Steve. There's a gentleman sitting, would you like to give us your name and come up here to the microphone? I'd like to have your name and and your address, please. Name and address.
My name is Jerry Hogan. I live at 217 Reynolds Avenue. I take care of 3 motels here locally. If this tax comes about, already it's the prices of hotels are so high in competition. There's so many motels here in town. I understand taking, instead of $300,000, giving somebody $600,000 to better represent our community. Well, that's saying if we give them $1 million, are we going to get $1 million more worth out of it? I just don't believe that letting all the burden right on lodging is the cure for this. Why not share it with the other tourism people as well? People that do tours and rafts and different things. Why should it be only secluded to bed and breakfasts and lodging as well? Is my understanding it's strictly just for lodging?
No.
I think part of the answer to that is that's why the city is, from general tax revenues, is going to contribute a matching amount. So essentially, half of it will be generated by the lodging and
taxpayers, the other one.
The lodging community, and the general population of Canyon City, meaning particularly the businesses, will be participating at the same level. So we don't want to put the entire burden on the lodging industry, because everybody benefits. All ships float on the rising tide, or whatever they say.
Yes, sir.
It's so.
Can I say that another way?
Sure.
So somebody does a lodging tax at your facility. They then go to another restaurant and eat, and they're going to pay sales tax. We're essentially taking a portion of that sales tax from one of your customers and turning it around and bringing it back to marketing.
So it's half whether at the lodging and half where they spend it elsewhere in the city.
Right, right.
That's the intent of the city's donation, is realizing that the lodging industry generates bodies. Those bodies are spending money, generating tax revenue. We're taking a portion of that tax revenue and putting it back to marketing.
After a while, is there going to be ever a surplus of we're putting $600,000 in a pot? Is my assumption, or the prices that y'all were talking about a minute ago, $300,000 here, $300,000 here, and another $100,000, I believe. Some of the sort. Is there at a certain moment that there becomes a surplus and they can't spend all $600,000 on pamphlets or signs? Or
There is no such thing in advertising.
In advertising, that ain't gonna
Well, I've
happen.
been on advertising. Only spend this is just strictly earmarked for advertising, pretty much. I assume.
Yes.
Yeah, because
There's
I
a-
have other hotel owners that ask me this. They ask me to come
Okay.
down here. Some of them don't speak English very well, and they're just curious about where the money's. I'm sorry.
There's,
I
could
just
you,
wanted to answer for them.
okay. With this,
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick? I travel the whole state of Colorado in what I do for a living. During the summertime, to get a room, I typically, for one person, I have to pay between $130 and $150 for one night. And that's throughout everywhere. This is small towns, large towns, everything. So as far as what the prices and what people are expecting to pay when they travel, we're not even close.
Well, I understand that, but we also don't get the revenue from people recreational marijuana that some of these other places that you're talking about do get. It's a lot of people do come to this town and they look for 420 friendly hotels or whatever. I'm new to Colorado. I haven't been here a whole lot of time. I'm not used to the marijuana legalization situation. But regardless is I was just curious where most of it goes, which he explained most of it when he stood up here. And if there was ever going to be a surplus, which there's never a surplus when it comes to a pot. I have a company
You find
as well,
someplace
I
else,
understand.
some other way to promote our city so we bring more people in so that the rooms are full all the time.
All year round,
You
full
got it.
in your
Y'all know when
hotels.
this would start about, y'all said something about November, they're going to start voting on it?
Ballot measure would be
maybe-
November, and it would start January the 1st.
That's when we'd start implementing January 1st of next year?
That would be ideal.
And for those who have questions
more
about it, they're welcome to apply to be on the board to make decisions governing how that money is spent.
How would they submit a question? Say, some of them are Korean or whatnot. There's different business owners here. And if they, say, typed up their letter or something like that, or had quite a few questions, more than I can answer by any means, is there a way to submit it to one of y'all that maybe to help?
Yeah. You can
And
give,
many of those people have attended our meetings.
you can get it to the mayor.
But which properties?
Everybody else
were-
does.
I help with the Super 8, the budget host, and as well as a very small amount for this holiday motel. It's a little more of a troubled motel so far, but I'm a general contractor. I just do this portion of my time.
Okay.
And it was just a really big subject for them.
Is
They all
the-
asked me about it.
Thank you. There's a gentleman back
Probably
here.
invite
Were
him
you
to a
going,
meeting.
Anish.
Narish,
Yeah.
did you want
You can
to,
bill Anissa's new hotel.
Anise?
If I may, I could answer some of the questions he raised. Again, I
Can
think
we let
it's,
this gentleman speak first?
No, let him finish, that's fine.
Okay.
Because he,
Okay,
he
my
might
name is
have something
Anis,
he got.
and we are the owner of the Best Western Hotel in Canyon City, and thank you for giving us the chance to talk about this. Everyone says it's an outsider who pays the tax. The lodging facility benefits the most. If I want it, I don't want to benefit. Let's not have the lodging tax. The problem is the law says that you cannot tax any other entity other than lodging entity for special tax. So I'm not going to argue why the lodging tax, because it's written in the state charter. So the only way to increase the money for tourism is by charging the lodging facility. And you say it's an outsider. 30% of our customers are insiders, so they will pay for this tax. People who come to visit this town, your family, your friends, doctors, staff, everyone will pay, and contractors will pay this tax. Basically, they will put their charge onto the citizen, so citizen will be burdened. I'm not arguing against that. If you want to charge the outsiders, rafting companies are the one which is highly used by the outsiders. Royal Gorge Bridge and Park is highly used by the outsiders. Why can't we charge them tax? Because the state or the law does not allow it. So it's very easy to convince the citizen that it's an outsider who pays the tax. So we are beyond that discussion with Tony, and I've been doing this motel business for 14 years in Prowers County. The same issue. It's not a tourist, but we still pass 2% lodging tax, and I was opposing it, but when it passed, we supported it, and I was on the board for 6 years until I moved out. Now, you heard that FCTC is the one who recommended this tax on the city properties. That's what I heard. One of the members of the FCTC is Quality Inn. Quality Inn is not within the city limits. People who stay at Quality Inn do not pay 3% sales tax. They will not pay this 5%, 3% lodging tax extra. They will still pay 2% council tax, county tax. So they will benefit by 6% as compared to our hotels which are within the city limit. And Best Western is the furthest hotel in the city limit as compared to Quality Inn. They are trying to promote that it's an outsider. The FCTC committee proposed this additional tax. At one time, they wanted 6 to 8% of this tax. Tony and we discussed during our meeting, it's wrong to put 6 to 8% on the lodging. So finally, we came to agreement that, okay, everyone benefits from this tax. So let's just come to some kind of sensible figure. So 3%, so total 5% lodging tax from the city property. And the city will match, and I'm glad that city is considering matching that fund because everyone in the city benefits it. Why Quality Inn is excluded? They say it will be $700,000 budget. Why can't we force Quality Inn? Why couldn't FCTC member convince one of their own member to join city and collect city sales tax, new 5% lodging tax? At the end of the day, it's an outsider. So that's an unfair competition on us when it comes to Quality Inn. That's a difficult issue because annexing some property into the city, I know how difficult it is, but I would like the council members and administration to work on it because city is going to lose 3% sales tax, another 3% lodging tax, 6%, and if you look at their revenue, which I don't know, but I'm sure we can easily add another $100,000 onto this budget. Would the FCTC like another 100,000? Yes. So that's one issue. Second issue is inappropriate use of this money. The budget is $200,000. $65,000 of that budget goes to one management company. The owner of that management company is a director of this board. $32,000 goes towards creating a website. We have city website, we have chamber website, we have county website, the bridge has their own website, train has their own website, all the hotels have their own website, all the rafting company have their own website. How many more websites you want? I tried to load the Royal Gorge region on the cell phone, it does not load. That $32,000 goes to the creating a website. The company is owned by the same person who is the director of this board. Another $30,000 goes towards internet marketing. It's written in this FCTC's budget. So look at that, 65,000 plus 32,000 plus another 30,000. Out of 200,000, you are spending $140,000 benefiting one board member of the FCTC. So honestly, the money is not used wisely. We have Blossom Festival. Every year it's becoming smaller and smaller because we are not able to advertise it. I asked the county rodeo, the rodeo people, why don't you go and ask for the fund to market your event so people can come and see the rodeo and stay at the hotel? They say we went there, they rejected it because FCTC's budget is exhausted even before the year starts. I don't even know why they meet 12 times a year. It's all gone. So we do not trust that the money is spent wisely. Now they are working with 200,000, 140,000 goes to one entity called VistaWorks. Am I wrong, Mr. Keverman?
You're mistaken in some of your understanding of how the money's spent.
Okay, there's hold it.
A lot of the money is spent for marketing. The lodging tax should be used for heads in beds, bringing more events to town. We haven't seen a new event come into town, so why are we doing this?
Okay, we're not going to get in a debate between each other. And then lastly, we do have a very long session for the planning commission.
Sorry,
so
yeah.
We need to wrap this up, and we need to
So
move
I will,
forward.
sorry, Mayor, I will just wrap it up that we want
Okay.
to see, we are ready to partner with Tony and city and help create this fund, but we want to make sure this board is made of, we have good recommendations, and the money is spent wisely, and council is putting 300,000 or 50% of whatever we collect into this fund. This money should not, no member of the board should directly or indirectly benefit or take a single penny out of this board.
Okay.
It should be a voluntary on fully faith-based money spending agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, we have lots of
I just
stuff to
want
hear.
to correct something very important for the record. Brian Jordan is the individual he's referring to as the owner of VistaWorks, and VistaWorks nor Brian Jordan are members of the Fremont County Tourism Council board. They do not hold a voting position on the board. He is a paid contractor, and while the money that he is paid and his business is paid is not insubstantial, we can also demonstrate that that also is a very good return on investment because the money that goes to that particular business includes most of our ad buys. If we've separated those out individually, you could see more clearly the amount of money that goes to individual ad buys, social media, which is highly trackable and has been hugely effective for us, and we can demonstrate that in terms of likes and shares and the kind of activity it's generating, discussion it's building about this area, which is what marketing is really intended to do. It's all highly trackable. We also fund events annually here as part of our bylaws. We're required by current bylaws to fund annual events. Last year, we attempted to conduct a lodging survey to look at room nights and occupancy rates and those kind of things and how we could be more effective at increasing those, and we had no respondents at all from any lodging property in the entire county. So we abandoned the effort.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can we
Yeah.
at least talk about this proposed agreement
Right.
versus FTCC?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. We understand that, Steve, but we need to
I'm
move just
I'm
on
done,
this
unless there are
thing
more
here.
questions.
Okay,
Thank you, Steve.
thank you. Any comments or questions from council? Mr. Meisner?
So, if we pass the marketing thing, wherever it's at in here, then the next step is to adopt the ballot, and then
And
the
appoint
final
the-
step would be to have the election and hopefully pass the tax.
Yeah.
If,
But prior to the
understanding-
ballot would be, you can actually, after the second reading, you can appoint the council, because there's a lot of work that will need to be done prior to November.
but
They can't spend any money because they don't have any.
considering the history of this community with taxes, for whatever reasons, if the tax didn't pass, what would then happen with that council?
They'd have to work on the next year's
Okay.
proposed ballot
I mean, they're
measure.
just there
Yeah,
with
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think
a
we have
purpose
some
and no
major
money.
players here that are willing, like Ashley had formulated with 2A, that will contribute to a educational information campaign that hopefully will help assure success. But at the same time, this time period has to be utilized to form this council. People like Anise are great champions of the lodging industry. We need their voices, their commitment, and their watchdog approach on this. I think if anything, we need more lodging representation, and he's a good example of that. So getting these people under the same umbrella by the end of July will be very important to steer to you an operating plan, a marketing plan, and a budget, so you're ready to pull the trigger after this ballot measure. Put it to work.
Okay, I'm going to go and ask for a motion. I think we've talked
Mr.
long
Mayor?
enough here. Mr. Schumacher?
I make a motion to pass ordinance number 18, series of 2017 on first reading.
Mr. Gill?
I'll second.
Motion's been made. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Member Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Yeah, I have a real quick question for Catherine down there. In your memo, you had mentioned that if we wanted to include the county, or if the county was included in this marketing district, there was, procedurally, it's a lot more complicated. Is there a way that after the fact, they can be petitioned into our marketing district without having to do a general election of the city residents?
Yeah, so just to clarify, what you've passed on first reading is a council that will spend the money if the tax is passed. So that question of creating the district, because you're doing it under your home rule authority, that question won't go to the voters. Only the lodging tax question
Right.
will go to the voters. So if the county wants to participate, we can do that through an IGA, which I think is the email that was read. I think that's what they're indicating they would like
No,
to.
but I want to do more than that. I want the county, oh wait, they can't get a 5% tax. They're statutorily, they're limited to 2%.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. What the
Okay.
best they could do is right now contribute to 100,000 being generated in the county.
Yeah, I
Hopefully,
understand.
they'd be willing to match that, so that would
Yeah.
increase the budget from 600 to either 7 or 800,000. But that door
Okay.
is still open, and we welcome them to walk through it.
All right, let's move forward. We're going to go ahead and, whatever number this is, interview candidates for the Planning Commission vacancies. We have Gary Clark, Ray Dorito, Eric Embry, Max Hansen, Rick Herman, Randy Smith, and Robert Wiat. We're going to interview these candidates to fill 3 vacancies on the Planning Commission. Each candidate will be introduced and interviewed individually as randomly selected by the draw of names, one at a time. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves and state why they wish to be appointed. Council will ask questions to which each candidate will be given an opportunity to respond. Following each interview, the candidate will be escorted to another room and await the remaining candidates' interviews. Once all candidates have been interviewed individually, they will re-enter the chambers. At this point, any member of council may move to reject the entire panel of candidates. A second is to motion would be required and a roll call vote taken without any discussion on the motions. Should the motion carry, the entire panel will be released and the selection process for the 2 vacancies will continue. If the motion does not carry, council shall proceed to a vote. Ballots will be distributed and tallied by the city clerk. The candidates having the highest number of votes will fill the vacancies. In case of a tie, those individual names will be placed into a ballot, and ballots will be distributed and once again tallied by the city clerk. This process will continue until the highest vote getter is determined. Once the 2 seats have been determined, council will officially appoint them. Are there any questions on the process?
What are the lengths of the terms we're trying to fill?
Two at 2020 and one at 18.
2 terms expire in 2020 and 1 expiring 2018. It's on the front of yours.
So 1 is for 1 year and 2 are for 3 years.
So there'll be 3.
2.5 and 1 and a half. Okay.
Well, actually, they're in July, so it's 3 full years. July to July.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
So we're going to ask for a motion in a second to do, no, we're not. We're going to interview. You're right. Okay.
No, I suggest we close all the doors between here and there.
Yeah, as soon as Tony, we got to get somebody first. Ashley?
We'll start with Rick Harmon.
Two minutes, huh?
Can I ask, we didn't approve the ballot language, right? We just approved the,
No, you haven't seen the
No, the
lodging tax
change to
question.
the,
Yeah.
to the code.
I think the ballot language was on the back of that to kind of give you an idea.
for information.
Yeah, just FYI. We have time to grab some water. Does anybody else need something to drink?
I need something to drink, but not any water.
Well, I'm gonna go get water. Do you want one?
Would you like to make that as a motion?
Are you referring to, what was that, the ale from the gods?
Hi, Rick.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing pretty
Hi,
good.
how
Was
you
that a
doing?
long wait back there?
Well, we were talking, we were chatting.
Really? Okay.
Not too long.
Good. At this point in time, we give each candidate 2 minutes to, should we wait till Kathy comes back? I don't know how to run her clock.
Got the magic button.
To introduce yourself and tell us what you would like to hear or talk about. And Kathy, I don't know how to push the button here.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay.
So each candidate, Rick, as they come in, will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and state what they wish, why they wish to be appointed to the planning commission.
Okay.
So, would you push the button, please? Yes. Is that started? Yes.
Ready to go? On your marks.
Well, thank you. My name is Rick Harmon. I was invited here by Adam when I was in the Highway 50 Pedestrian Crossing Committee, and he asked me to consider serving on this committee. And I approved. I liked the idea. I came here a little over a year and a half ago from Wisconsin, and would like to be here because I find a need to be involved, basically. I find a need to help Canyon City improve. I believe I was brought here for a reason. I really don't know what that reason is yet. My wife and I came here sight unseen, kind of a leap of faith. And this seems like a really good opportunity to help Canyon City grow. I feel a sense of responsibility to it, since I believe that I was brought here for a reason. I feel a sense of necessity because I would like Canyon City to work out for me and my wife. and I just genuinely want to see Canyon City do well. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here to do it. There's so much potential in this community. If I can be a part of that some way, then great. And I support really just about anything that you all are doing. I'm working for Jeep Tours right now as a Jeep tour guide on a part-time basis, enjoying that and liking what I'm hearing from people. But it's interesting the comments you get from people too about, you know, Canyon City and what they don't know or what they're learning, you know, and you're thinking, how can you not know that? Because this is such a great place, you know. So happy to be here, and I'll welcome any questions you have.
Mr. Weed?
Thank you. Good to have you here, Rick. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dennis.
A couple of real quick questions. Keep it brief. Canyon City is, well, the last census population growth was, over the 10-year period, was less than 2%. Very low population growth. Do you favor more growth?
I do.
Can we do
yeah.
better than that, or is that good?
No, I don't think it's good. I think more growth is definitely doable, and I think it's necessary. I don't necessarily see. I don't want to call it stagnant growth, but stagnant growth when you're working in when you're in an elderly community is probably not a good thing. Growth is going to bring much more opportunity for youth, much more opportunity for the millennials, and I seriously think growth is necessary.
Yeah, and then the other, just quick question. The city has a, what the hell's the name of it? The comprehensive plan, that's what I was thinking of. And it's been quite a while since that was reviewed. I don't know if you've had a chance to ever see our comprehensive plan.
I have not looked at the comprehensive plan.
But the Planning Commission, both city and county, are charged by state statute with being responsible for updating the comprehensive plans. And it's, I sit on the county planning commission. That's a very time-consuming process. You got some time for that?
Right now I have a lot of time. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm continuing to look for work, and it's very possible I may be working in Colorado Springs or Pueblo, but I fully intend to keep Canyon City my home. I don't want to move my wife.
Okay, I'm done.
She's entrenched here.
Were you ever involved in any kind of building trade? Were you a contractor or anything?
No, I've done my own. The house I have, I bought to flip or live in, and I flipped it. Well, I didn't flip it. I'm still living in it, but I was not a contractor. I worked for a housing authority and oversaw construction projects on occasion.
Was that that was the bulk of your career?
No, the bulk of my career was working in a manufacturing facility in Neenah, Wisconsin.
Where?
Creative Metal Products. It's in Neenah.
No, I'm sorry. What town?
Neenah, Wisconsin.
How big a town was that?
About 16,000, 17,000 people, I think.
A little bigger than
little bigger than that? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what language that is. But anyway.
Yeah, it's Indian. Yeah. Yeah, Menasha's about 15,000. Neenah's about 17, I think, or 18 or something like that.
What was your overall impression of the government there?
My impression of the government there?
Yeah.
It's such a big melting pot of government there. I mean, there's.
Well, I mean, it's a small town like Canyon.
Yeah.
16,000 people.
Menasha was struggling.
Okay.
Government-wise was struggling. Neenah was pretty productive. Much more progressive than Menasha was. Menasha was much more conservative, and they suffered for it.
Okay. That's all I got. Ms. Smith?
Rick, when you say that you are passionate about helping Canyon City, I would like to note that you did serve on our Highway 50 Pedestrian Crossing Committee. You applied for Economic Development and Downtown position. We're a very close contender for that position. And that you're also on the Community Recreation Center Committee to hopefully get a YMCA or Community Rec
I am.
Center.
Yes.
So when you say that, I believe your words and that you are active in our community. Do you have any other special interests, talents or skills that you can add to the Planning Commission as you would serve Canyon City?
I guess the thing that comes to mind the most, and what I got out of the Highway 50 pedestrian overpass committee, and to some extent the rec center. My job for the last 12 years of my career was as a vice president of a manufacturing company, which was pretty much being a mediator between the owner of the company and the employees. So I represented the employees to the owner, represented the owner to the employees, represented the company to customers, and vice versa. But being in that position put me in a position to see everything that was happening in the company. It gave me a much bigger perspective, bigger picture perspective than other people had. Serving on the committees that I'm serving on here, I'm seeing that as well, more so the Highway 50 pedestrian overpass. The city has plans. The city has some long-term plans that are very viable plans and very beautiful plans. When you have that bigger picture, you're much more able to see the sacrifices that need to be made, and you're much more willing to accept the realities of those sacrifices to some extent. It just gives a much more longer-term perspective to a conversation than a much more defensive perspective to a conversation. You're just much more willing to take different perspectives into light, I guess you could say. I guess that's where I see my biggest strength, I think.
Mr. President?
Hopefully my question is longer than your answer, but the Planning Commission is often called upon to make tough decisions. And believe me, we've been through some of these things. Tell us how you would handle a controversial issue where attitudes and opinions of the public are expressed at a public hearing and seem to conflict with the laws and regulations you're responsible to uphold. How would you handle that whole process? And it's going to happen.
Well, I'm sure it's going to happen. I've been in situations at work where that happened. Tactfully, to the best of my ability, tactfully. There are times when you have to draw a line. There are times when you have to stand your ground, and you know, a decision is a decision. There are times when you need to really. It's tough to give one answer to that. There are times when you need to finesse it, and there's times when you need to really stand your ground and make the point very clearly. I've been in all of those situations. You know, when you're working for an owner that's got millions of dollars invested in the company and employees that don't necessarily want to follow the rules, you need to work it. You know, I guess I can't give you a hard and fast answer. But everything is done tactfully.
Thank you.
Sure.
Rick, there's a lot of strong individuals on the Planning Commission now. Do you feel that with your skills and your mindset that adding you to the commission would be a cohesive thing? And I mean, not a bunch of headbutting or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I stand my ground too sometimes, you know, but
okay.
you still need to, well, yeah, we were just talking about that in there. There's so few people who are willing to flex these days. You know, everybody wants to stand their ground. My position as the vice president of Creative Metal Products was one where I could not necessarily stand my ground. I had to live up to the expectations of the owner. If I didn't agree with them, I had to live up to the expectations, and I had to understand that, and I did understand that. So again, finesse, but yeah, I definitely am going to be much more, I don't want to say necessarily cooperative, but you know, I'm not going to give in to everybody, but I'm not going to butt heads. That's just senseless, you know.
And I assume you've got the time to study all of the zoning and...
I do have the time to study all the zoning right now.
Big book.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mark?
Been around a bit, and you've looked. I mean, what areas do you think that maybe some zoning changes and such would benefit Canyon City? As far as bringing people in, retaining people, what areas in our zoning regulations and such do you think might make a difference?
I would kind of like to see industrial zoning get away from the river. It's not, where I come from too, the river was industrial. It's hugely industrial, and you really couldn't get to it. But it caused problems with the river. And here, since so much of Canyon City revolves around the river, I would much rather see more similar to what the plan, like the river corridor plan and the downtown development plan. All of those plans focus more on community and retail and fun activities done by the river. I'd rather see industrial away from the river if possible, and maybe move it out slightly. But I don't necessarily want to take business away from downtown either. You want to have a good, vibrant community downtown. But I think that's probably the biggest thing. There's always going to be issues with floodplain down there that need to be dealt with, which I think in the long run will be an issue. But if the community thrives on the river, then I think the river needs to be much more community oriented.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
I noticed on your application you sent us, you have Rick and Marla. And to me, that's very significant in the fact that because it tells me that you've got support from the other side. And
I'd
there's a
like
lot of
to think
hours
so.
that get involved with things like that. And sometimes that can be conflicting and all that. So that tells me, in a sense, a lot that with regards to that. The other thing I noticed on your deal here is you says Canyon City has so much to offer, and that kind of goes along with the one question we have here. Was there any one issue or reason that prompted you to apply as a candidate for the Planning Commission?
One issue, not issue. I just don't know that. You see. I guess I'll go back to when I moved here. I walked through downtown, and it was a Tuesday night. I moved my son into his house in Boulder, my wife into her house here, and I ended up going back to Wisconsin for a few months. But we're walking downtown on Tuesday night, and nothing was open. I had money in my hand. I wanted to spend some. I wanted to see downtown. Our lives were we were downtown all the time. It was a very vibrant community. And we walked around, and it just reminded me of Appleton, Wisconsin, 20 years ago, when the community was struggling. There were kids hanging around downtown, but people were afraid to go down there. And now it's an extremely vibrant downtown. It's just a beautiful place to be. And all I could see was that happening here. It just reminded me so much of my hometown. It's like there is so much potential here. There's so much potential here. Why not have it? That's kind of what brings me here. And I want this to work out for me, obviously, to be selfish. I want Canyon City to work out for me and my wife. So I want to make it happen.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Good? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Preston Troutman, right? Did I win? Did I win?
Yes. It's Gary Clark.
Gary Clark. Mr. Clark.
Thanks, Catherine.
Drive safe up 115.
Oh, good. We can talk about our attorney now that she's leaving. Oh, no, you'll be on. Sorry. Don't charge us for that. Gary Clark, related to Dick Clark?
We'll find out if he comes in and starts singing.
You remember Dick Clark, the bandstand? Are you that old?
Yes.
I'm old.
You want another performance tonight?
Would it?
Well, we had the Shakespearean performance.
Yeah.
And now we can have grandstand.
Oh, if he pops into song from the 60s, I'm going to
No? Okay.
join in.
Take it
All
for a
right.
spin.
Love you.
The desk, yeah. One of them's wired and one is not, so choose.
Pick wisely.
He's not used to being down there.
I'm past the electrocution part.
Thank you, Gary. Right. This would, we open up with 2 minutes for you to give us, introduce yourself and tell us, state why you wish to be appointed to the Planning Commission. So your time starts.
Okay, thank you very much. I put in for this position mainly because I've been thinking about it for quite a few years. I currently serve on the Board of Adjustments. I've been on the Board of Adjustments for 10 years, working on 11. And like I said, I've always been interested. Have a quite extensive background in reviewing, managing application of projects, a total between city government and federal government of 36 years. So I know a little bit about procedures and a whole lot about application. And that's pretty much mine.
Could I ask, how long have you been in town?
I've lived here 26 years.
A while, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. Are you going to remain on the Board of Adjustments if you get this position also?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how much juice is in this chair. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the Board of Adjustments. It doesn't, people don't think that we do much on it because we don't meet that often, but yeah, I plan on staying on it.
You make an impact.
Okay. Mr. Weed?
Yeah. Population growth here in the last census over 10 years was 2%. What's your thoughts on that?
As far as my overall thought on it?
Is that good? Is that, I mean, obviously Canyon City's not growing. It's, so.
Well, I guess combined with the economic times, I don't see that as a bad number. There have been quite an extensive period of time where a lot of cities haven't grown. Colorado in itself is starting to grow exponentially here in the last year or so. So I would say a 2% growth is not that great, but at the same time, it's not that bad. The future of the city is probably going to increase.
Just to be clear, that's 2% total over 10 years.
Correct.
0.2% per
Right.
year. And then, I don't know if you're familiar with our comprehensive plan. By state statute, planning commissions, county and city, are charged with reviewing and updating the comprehensive plans. And it's a question about whether that sounds like something interesting, that's something we need to do, and do you have the time for it? It's time consuming.
Oh, I have the time. I'm retired, so I got all the time.
Be
And
careful
yeah,
what you say.
What's that?
Be careful what you say.
Well, it's like anything else. You put the time into it that you want to put into it.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have any concerns about spending time doing that, looking over those kind of things and reviewing it.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
What special skills and interests do you have that can enhance the Planning Commission?
Probably just a organizational and management background. I've been a manager for 29 years inside of some type of governmental structure. And outside of even the government structure, I operated several businesses in the past, so I have a good feel for the organizational aspect of getting things accomplished, not necessarily from a large influx, but even from a small approach on how to keep things moving.
Mr. Meisner?
The Planning Commission is often called upon to make difficult or tough decisions. Kind of communicate how you would handle a controversial issue where attitudes and opinions of the public are expressed at a public hearing, and those seem to conflict with laws and regulations you're responsible to uphold. How do you handle that whole situation?
I've always believed that issues boil down to 2 points: what has to be done and what wants to be done. The wants to be done is always a personnel issue. It's not personal. So as a person sitting in the position of, for example, all of you, the hard decisions have to be made regardless of how the temperature in the room is. And your job, or my job, would be to keep that temperature at a manageable working level to accomplish the task at hand. Listening to you guys tonight discussing the marijuana regulations, you could see that fluctuate amongst you guys alone. And that's something you all have to manage. And it's a manageable thing. But that's how I see those things going. It's a temperature.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gill?
What zoning regulations do you think need the most updating in the city to make us a little more successful?
You know, I really don't have an answer for that as far as what the most needs to be.
Well, just some general ideas then, if you don't have specifics. I mean, what do you think would enhance Canyon City as a place to come live, a place to come do business and such?
You know, just from listening to some people that live here and people that know I'm on the Board of Adjustments, you hear a lot about the neighbor can do this and I can't do it. And I'll use this as an example. I recently was listening to someone talk about roosters, and there are no roosters allowed in town, but people don't understand that. And listening to their concern about that and presenting to them, well, if you have an issue with that, you need to definitely address that with the city council. So things like that, and I'll call it is zoning, but zoning regulations that satisfy the citizens. I don't know how many of those need to be looked at. I would say I can almost bet you that marijuana is going to come up again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jacques, any questions?
There's been a lot of talk about the Highway 50 corridor, and there's a lot of stuff in there which, you know, have some people think that what we have, and this goes along with the zoning stuff, we have a lot of things that could be conflicting and all that. And then the Planning Commission, some of those things could come about if we decide to, or somebody decides to come along with regard to trying to establish something along the river corridor. And then there's things that may come up to you folks in that. So how do you look at that with regards to the ability with the Planning Commission to deal with situations that may come along with that specific area?
Well, I have a little bit of experience with that. I sat on the Highway 50 Corridor Committee, and going through that process and then looking at the River Committee, there was a lot of things in conjunction, but then again separate, a lot of different ideas. As far as settling on that, again, that's obviously going to boil down to a presentation to the City Council, and there's a lot of positive aspects about both of those avenues, and definitely Highway 50 there. I'm going to say it bluntly, it's a life-threatening event sometimes to cross that road some days, even at a stoplight. So there's a definite need for some change in that area.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Clark. We'll escort you to a private room. No.
That's where the execution, no, I'm just
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.
Pick another name.
Pick a name. Pick your hand and
Oh, who's gonna come?
We're going to bring the basket over here, and Weed and I are going to pick.
We know how to do it.
We can get this thing done.
Robert,
We got the basket.
Robert Willett.
Robert
Robert.
Wallet.
Robert. Oh, well, Willett.
I didn't realize what you were doing.
So was this?
Usually when they put a basket in front of you, I'm supposed to throw money in it.
think there was that many rooms.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty good idea. What? Do you have your questions ready? Right up there. Pick, right.
You don't want that seat over there.
Hi, Robert. How are you this evening?
I'm well.
Sorry for that long delay there.
Hey, no problem. We had a nice visit.
You did? Okay. We taped everything you said.
Did you?
No,
Good.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So we'll give you 2 minutes to say something about yourself and maybe tell us why you wish to be appointed. So go ahead.
I'm Bob Wellett, resident of Canyon City itself for just about 2 years now. Own property out in the county. Been there for about 15 years. And then retired from California, about 30 years in law enforcement, retired as a de facto chief of police of a small town in eastern San Bernardino County, which is Southern California. And I currently sit on the Arkansas River Corridor Committee, and that's kind of what got my interest here after seeing that. And sitting there, and I saw the application, or for interest for the Planning Commission. I thought, well, you know, in my experience, cities often have difficult times filling volunteer positions like that and stuff. So, and I attend, I think you guys have seen me once or twice here, just to come see what's going on in the city, and I also attend the county commissioners meetings on a regular basis, just to see what's going on, to kind of keep my ear to the ground and stuff, and just interested. I'm interested. This is a location we chose to retire in, and like to volunteer my part of doing something to help the community get better. You know, so you got any questions or anything? I'm sure there's probably some eminently more qualified planning and zoning people on the thing, but I think I bring a lot of years of experience. I've got a lot of experience in helping communities plan in my positions with the Sheriff's Office over those years. So large and small communities. I've seen some well-planned communities and some not so well-planned communities. So.
Okay. When you just happened to mention, did you the community that you were in, did it have a strategic plan, do you know, or a 5-year plan or anything like that?
I'm sorry?
Did the community that you served most of your time in, did it have a long-range or a short-range strategic plan, or did it have a 5-year plan or something like that? Do you recall?
Well, over the course of my career, I worked in 8 or 10 different cities.
Oh, okay.
Or communities, and some of them did. The last one I worked in didn't. It was a smaller community, and it was coming through a transition from, you know, it was an old railroad town kind of thing, and they had lost a lot of the railroad jobs, and they were kind of stuck in a Twilight Zone thing, and that was part of what I had hoped to do when I was there, was help them move forward. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but we were making some progress. But they didn't have any long-term.
Was there a planning commission there? Do you recall?
I think most of the yeah, there was. I think there was one guy there that was, you know, designated as the planning commission, if you will. Small city council, 7-member city council, including the mayor. About 10,000 people. So it was, you know, they were kind of in that Twilight Zone era of coming from having a whole lot of well-paying jobs to not having such.
Okay. Frank, would you like to start? We'll just come this way.
What was the one main thing that intrigued you to apply for the position on the Planning Commission, looking at some of the things that have happened within the town of Canyon City, some of the ups and downs that we had? You know, we've had some controversial decisions, you know, we got them resolved and all that, but what was the one thing that really, really sparked your interest?
This is where I live, and it's a neat little town, and that's why we're here. I mean, actually, when I started coming here as a kid, so the first my first choice of retirement was Salida for years, but this is 40 years in the making, right? And I chose here because of the environment, the weather, of course. And I thought, you know, there's some neat things that can happen in this town, and I'd like to be a part of that, you know. I have some, not ideas, but experiences and viewpoints and stuff from other areas and things that I think I can bring, I can add to it. I'm not going to make this community what it needs to be or what people want it to be, but I sure would like to help it grow and see it thrive and become what people envision that it can become.
Ms. Schumacher?
Yes, the Planning Commission's often called on to make some very tough decisions that are not always welcome with open arms.
Yes, ma'am.
And our public here is very outspoken when they get their toes stepped on.
Yes, ma'am.
How would you handle a situation like that?
It's not uncommon. My experience, you know, I've always dealt with difficult decisions, you know, and the business I was in was always difficult decisions. And I know over the course of years in the different communities I lived in my position as their chief law enforcement officer in that particular community, it was always, you know, you're always making those tough decisions and you handle them the best you can. You can't please everybody. You compromise as much as possible and you come to the best solution that you can come to given the current state of the laws, or in this case, the vision of the city or, you know, the town, what the vision of this place is going to be that has here. And it's not, I mean, you make them. You have to make them. You make the right decision and that you can, the best decision that you can. Right decision is not always the easiest one to make, but if it's the right decision, it's the right decision.
Reed?
Thank you. Compared to the rest of the state, population growth in Canyon City is very low.
Mm-hmm.
It's something like 2% over the last 10 years of the census, the last census that was done. What's your thoughts on population growth in general? And what's your views as far as regulations that you could do to support your views on that?
Population growth in general is necessary. Everything living either grows or it dies. And this town, this community, it has to grow. I know there's a lot of people that don't want to keep it so you can keep it a small town atmosphere and still grow and have good growth as long as you've got good people working and good ideas and good vision for what the community can be. But you got to grow. Otherwise, you're going to, like that last community I worked with, you know, they had a large faction that didn't want to grow. And unfortunately, you know, they were dying. And, you know.
Got any thoughts regulation-wise how you can encourage growth?
Regulation-wise on growth, I hadn't really given that much thought, quite frankly. You can have very positive growth. I've seen cities grow rapidly. I mean, one of the biggest cities I worked in is over 100 and something thousand people today. Started out as probably about this size of the community when I first started working there. Certainly they've grown fast, and it's obviously a Southern California, but it was well planned, well thought out. They made some demands on the businesses and stuff that I could not believe were done, but the business community bought into them, saw that it was good for the city, and like I said, we went from, you know, 30,000 people to a couple 100,000 people now since I just started working there in 1980. So, I mean, it's been, I certainly don't see this area growing like that. I left to get away from that, but there is room for growth here.
right.
Some modernization and those types of things, modern ideas and modern thinking. But a lot of that stuff's going to come, I think, from the generation or two behind me. I've got a lot to offer. I can offer a lot of guidance and a lot of help. But as far as making this community what it's going to be 15, 20 years from now is really in the hands of a lot of the younger people,
right.
with help from us old folks.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
We need
See how he did that? Just
you.
right in there. Right
Oh,
out.
Dennis, back off.
Getting punched on here. Okay, Greg Dorito. Bring up pizza.
You feel better now, Mayor?
I'm hungry. It's a Greg Dorito.
I need a cigarette.
Yeah. This guy's dying over here.
And he's putting Bengay on over here.
I got Bengay on.
Oh, that must be the mint you have.
You guys need a seventh inning stretch out there?
You gotta sing.
What are you doing here, Christy? Yeah, I heard you moved to Aurora or something, or Brighton or something. Westminster.
Part of Westminster.
Hi, Greg. How are you guys this evening? Doing good.
Good.
Okay, we're moving right along here. Thank you for coming. So we'll give you 2 minutes to sort of introduce yourself and tell us why you'd like to be on the Planning Commission.
Sure,
So,
okay.
there you go.
Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Troutman. I have been a business owner in Canyon City since 2001. So I've always taken an active interest. I've done some side projects, remodeled some properties. But for the last 11 years, I've always lived in the county. So despite my want to, be a member of some of these city projects, I was prohibited based on my proximity. I've always coached Pee Wee soccer. I volunteered with the Canyon City Music and Blossom Board for 10 years. Coordinated several events. Recently, I was on an advisory board with the marijuana licensing for the grows that they were very contentiously debating at the base of Dawson Ranch. And I've always been a believer that when you live in a community, when you're a part of it, you have to give back. You can't just take from it. And the best way to give back is to be a part in it, be a part in the change and the improvement, try and help things be a little bit better for tomorrow than they were yesterday. As far as my background, I have a bachelor's degree in communication. Like I said, I've been a business owner. I employ 27 employees. I think a lot of times positions like this are really trying to find the middle ground on situations. There's black and white interpretation, but there's always the human element of trying to find some mediation and trying to find a way to have two successful outcomes. If there's a winner and they're a loser, then they're both losers. You have to have both parties leaving a table feeling like their success. So positions like this are something that would be of great appeal to me.
Okay, thank you. Would Mr. Gill, would you like to start this time?
What area of zoning regulations do you think need most updating in order to make Canyon City economically competitive in this region?
As far as zoning, I feel like I think that a lot of our zoning, we ran into this on that last committee. There's some kind of spot zoning going on, and I think that a lot of the what used to be some of the manufacturing and some of the industry zoning areas need to be reevaluated to reevaluate based on the Highway 50 corridor and the Riverwalk projects, and basically getting everybody on the same page so that the entire motto of some of these neighborhoods is going in the same direction.
Thank you.
Mr. Meisner, question?
You mentioned a possible answer to this, but I'm not going to buy that one. The Planning Commission is often called upon to make tough decisions, which you obviously already realize. Tell us how you would handle a controversial issue where attitudes and opinions of the public are expressed at the public hearing, but those conflict with laws and regulations you're responsible to uphold. Essentially, I'm saying somebody's going to walk away as a loser potentially.
Well, I mean, in a situation like that, there's no simple outcome to that. I don't think when you're held as a steward of a position, you have a responsibility and obligation to the laws and the ethics. If it violates laws, then obviously immediately it has to be off the board. If it violates ethics, you can't compromise yourself and you can't compromise the integrity of the community in order to achieve what's popular. But I think probably the key in a situation like that is to minimize some of the impact by helping the people that are contentiously debating it with you understand why you understand their viewpoint, that you're going to have to respectfully follow the laws, the ethics, and what's best for the community at large.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, question?
Yes, ma'am.
Committee. Have you been following any of the other committees that have been working as far as the river corridor, Highway 50 pedestrian crossing?
No, I have not.
Also to go over business regulations and codes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part of that question? Your mic
So
cut out. I
we'll be
apologize.
having a committee that will be looking at business regulations and codes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any opinions or background that could help as far as, because I'm sure Planning Commission will be a part of that, of going over better ways to help businesses meet codes and streamline processes for getting permits?
Well, I think that Canyon City is a beautiful community, and I think that there's a lot of potential for growth here. And I think that one of the difficulties we've had is finding common ground. And I think that as far as what you're talking about in respect to the business codes, I think that my years in as a business owner have given me some perspective, but not just as a business owner, but also, you know, we took a building and we remodeled it. So I've dealt with the building department, I've dealt with the sewer department, I've dealt over the years with other projects, pretty much almost every department within the city. I've also worked quite heavily with several of the staff. I think that I would be an asset to help if you're asking about trying to get a kind of a business mantra of everybody on the same page. I think I would be an asset for that. But I also am a believer that you have to propagate business for success. I think that we need to have an obligation as a large part of our community to have the success and the thriving business community, because without it, you don't have jobs. Without jobs, you don't have population. It's really that simple.
Okay. Mr. Weed? Question?
That's I'm fine-tuning this thing. By the time we
Oh,
get done, I'll
I
have
can
a
jump over.
Take
really
your time,
good
Dennis.
question.
Should
No,
we
no.
move?
Take your time. I ordered snacks.
Okay.
It's, no, so, what are your thoughts on the Planning Commission's role in promoting growth of Canyon City, both commercially and residentially?
You know, I would like to see all members, the Planning Commission, I would like to see the City Council, I'd like to see all of us have a little bit better foothold on trying to get the county as a whole moving in a positive direction to get some growth in here. I look at some of the successes that Salida has had in some of these smaller communities, and a lot of it really is based on like the synergy of getting multiple committees, multiple groups moving in the same direction and on the same page. As far as the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think that, you know, we could be an asset for helping stimulate, hopefully, some businesses and some sales tax revenue to be generated and produced.
Ms. Schumacher, question?
Mr. Dorito.
Good evening, Ms.
Good
Schumacher.
evening. Serving as a planning commissioner requires the attendance of, I thought it was 2 meetings a month. 1 meeting a month? Okay. Are your other
I
commitments?
just look at my calendar. Sorry. 1 or 2 meetings.
I don't know
a month.
why I thought they meant the day after we met.
No, it's once a month, yeah.
Is it? Okay. With that, checked out, we all know now. With your other commitments that you have right now, would you be able to perform your duties as a planning commission individual?
I fully believe I would. I have eliminated some of my other, as I had kind of spoken earlier, I used to volunteer with Blossom. I've resigned from that board. For 11 years, I coached Pee Wee soccer, and I resigned from that to try and make some room in my schedule. And hopefully that should not be a problem, but like I said, as barring unforeseen circumstances.
Thank you.
Shakez?
Thank you.
Hi, Greg, how you doing?
Good evening, Frank. How are you?
What one main thing when we talk about growth, what would you think would be the one thing that could come to Canyon City that would generate growth to start that can spread to other types of growth? So what would you think would be the one thing to get us started?
You know, I think one thing that I would love to see Canyon wrap their head around is I would like to see a centralized business district that that really has got some momentum. I feel like sometimes our efforts have been diluted between Main Street, and then there's some growth on the Highway 50 corridor, and then there's some growth out at the shopping centers and on the east edge of town. And I think that while all those are an asset, and I think that they're necessary, I think you have to, I think finding a centralized area to put your efforts and all your eggs, so to speak, in one basket would really help Canyon City. I think that if you've got 4 areas of commercial area that are 50% occupied, I don't think you're doing any of them a benefit. I think it would be better to try and consolidate efforts to get a couple of them really thriving and successful. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the council.
We have the next candidate coming forward,
Eric Embry.
Eric Embry.
Wait a minute, I thought I got to pick sometime.
Oh, do you,
No, that's fine, that's fine. I'll just pick the last one.
Yeah.
No, Eric.
Pick the last one. Yeah.
I'll pick number 7.
Wait. There's only one left.
What?
Eric, Max, Randy Smith.
One left, and that's it.
So then somebody must have pulled one. There's only one left in the basket, so. Well, so
that
whoever this
doesn't,
one
that
is,
makes
whatever
sense.
pulled is the last one.
Yeah.
Hi, Eric.
How's it going?
Well, long night.
Yeah.
As soon as we get Kathy in here, what we're going to do is you have 2 minutes to tell us a little about yourself and why you'd like to be on the Planning Commission. And we'll have Kathy start the clock here, and then we'll have the counselors will ask you questions. So tell us about yourself and why you'd like to be on the Planning Commission.
All right. Good evening. My name is Eric Embry. As you can see, I work at the post office. I've previously served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Had a lot of fun doing it. I had to resign because I didn't have the time. There's just a lot of conflicting scheduling with my work and stuff. Since then, I've become a full-time regular at the post office. I've got a set normal schedule, and I'm able to do it, and I really enjoy doing it. Always had a good time. Always enjoyed being part of the future of our city and the city government. It's always been fascinating to me. So, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I just, that's pretty much the rundown of me.
Frank, would you like to start?
So if you get on the planning commission and the people come up with something hard to do, you should be able to handle that pretty good, because I'm sure a lot of people complain sometimes about getting the mail, the wrong mail, the mail coming late. So that would be one of the things that the people on the planning commission have to deal with. They have to deal with controversy that comes not only from the outside, but sometimes you have a little bit of controversy within the other members of the planning commission with regards to that. How do you feel you would handle that?
I'd handle it just fine. I have before, as Mr. Mayor, you know, you were on the planning commission with me, and so was Councilmember Gill. I mean, we served together, and I mean, we go along and get along most of the time. I mean, Commissioner Bellantoni was a little difficult sometimes, but she always brought a lot to the table, and she was fun to work with. And I think if you could work with her, you can work with a lot of people. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Schumacher?
Eric, you said that you feel like the commission has the potential to be a lot more proactive in moving along the future of, or moving the future of our city along. How would you go about doing this? What
Okay.
would you do to promote?
Yeah, absolutely. So before, I felt like we were mostly reactive to, you know, just the things that were coming down the pipeline. I think now that most of the master plan is in place, and I think we did the River Corridor Plan and the Highway 50 Corridor Plan, I think we could take steps to further those plans in preparation for the future. As before, you know, we kind of didn't have any guidance from the council most of the time. We just kind of, I think actually all of you, except you, were there for that meeting we had, I think it was early last year, when we all got together and sat down, and we kind of just said, look, we serve at the pleasure of the council, and we need some guidance on what to do. And I think that was a big problem before, was we kind of just were a reactionary committee who just sat there and waited. And I think we can be a little more proactive, as you know, in planning and zoning, with what the goals of the council are for the future of the city.
Mr. Weed?
Oh, thanks. Hi, Eric. What are your thoughts on the Planning Commission's role in promoting growth in Canyon City, both residentially and commercially?
Well, obviously it's just an advisory board, but I feel that, you know, we could spearhead a lot of that to where you can make it easier for growth and development by what you do through the zoning and planning, essentially. You can go through the zoning code and make it easier for businesses to move in, make it easier for people to do what they want with their property, as long as it conforms to what the city's goals are as far as the future. I mean, obviously you don't want to take a nice piece of property and make it a mobile home park, but you would want to make it easier for people to come in and do what they want to do on their property and expand and grow.
Thank you.
Smith?
What assets did you offer the planning commission before when you were served on it? What skills and talents and did you offer?
Well, before I was the youngest person. I don't know if I still am with Gregory on there now. Before I was the youngest person, I felt like I brought some fresh ideas and fresh blood to the mix. I mean, my generation is going to be the future leaders of this community, and I think that as well as some of my peers, need to spearhead that and get ahead of the curve here and make it so it's easier for you guys to pass the torch on to my generation. And, you know.
We're looking ahead to changing some of the regulations and codes, or to make it easier for older buildings and businesses to be compliant to codes. And what are your thoughts and feelings as far as being more progressive for streamlining and helping businesses with code enforcement?
I'm all for it. Pretty much before, when I was on commission, my two main questions, anytime anything came up, is will this help growth? Will this create jobs? Will it help jobs? You know, I just want anything that's going to help this community grow and people move in, be able to create jobs, be able to create growth. I'm all for it. So if you guys think that anything we can do with the zoning to these older properties will bring people in, let them fix it up, help businesses move into older buildings, help make it easier on them, I'm all for it.
Mr. Meister?
Most of the challenging issues that I've been involved with since I've been on council have moved through the planning commission, I'm going to say, or at least from that part. But the point is, the planning commission is often called upon to make tough decisions. Tell us how you would handle a controversial issue where attitudes and opinion of the public are expressed at a public hearing, and those attitudes and opinions conflict with laws and regulations you're responsible to uphold. What's your approach for handling that?
Well, okay, so you have to take everybody's opinion into accord and respect their opinion, even though it might differ from yours. But if there are policies and procedures and laws and regulations set in place already, those are what you need to follow. It might not be the most tactful way to go about it, but they're there for a reason. I mean, that goes back to when I was in the military. I mean, there's policies and procedures, and that's what you follow. If they need to be changed, then they will be, and that's your folks' job.
Thank you.
Here's a good one for you.
Okay.
You've served on Planning Commission.
I have.
What do you feel was your greatest accomplishment while you were on Planning Commission that benefited the city of Canyon City, the residents of the city of Canyon City?
Good one.
There had to be something that stuck in your mind that you just stood up and you were proud about.
When we did the Highway 50 corridor plan, that was a lot of fun. Gave a lot of input to it, and planning is a lot more fun than zoning, in my opinion. I mean, you get to see the future, or maybe it depends on what the council wants to move forward within those plans. But working on that was probably the funnest thing I did, and the thing I felt that was going to benefit the city most in the long run. Obviously, not right away, because these plans take a long time to put in place and take money, and as a city, that seems to be something we have a problem with sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
We'll move on. We'll
right.
escort you to a room.
Thank you.
Better be the one that's back
Randy,
Randy.
is he the last one?
No.
Oh, we had somebody, a no-show? Okay.
Max never showed.
Got two.
Hanson.
Apparently not.
Oh, no, that's,
Apparently not. Oh, get rid of that one.
Hi there. Hi, Randy. Randy, right? Hello? Yes.
I can watch you up on the TV, so.
Yes.
one over. There,
Welcome.
okay, good.
So what we're doing is we'll have, give you 2 minutes to explain some things about yourself and why you would like to be on the Canyon City Planning Commission. So go ahead.
Well, basically, I started out in the Air Force back in '83. Spent about 21 years in the medical service. I was an operating room tech for a long time. So basically dealt with a lot of traumatic injuries and a lot of things that you don't normally see. And if you see them on TV, you go, that's not right. A little nervous, so sorry about that. After the 21 years of the Air Force, I went ahead and came to Canyon City. We were stationed at the Air Force Academy and liked Colorado so much that we came here and retired. Joined DOC, and I started out as a medical case manager. So interesting enough, I was dealing with the ADA portion of it. So we had a lot of offenders that were handicapped. So it was one of my jobs to go throughout the state and make sure that all the facilities were in compliance, I guess. So at one time I could tell you that we had 151 inmates in wheelchairs, and I had to make sure they had access to all the facilities there and everything within. I got tired of traveling, so I went ahead and put in my resignation there, but before that I went ahead and joined the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So now I work out in Florence, and I bounce back and forth between the USP and ADX, Supermax. My job there as Assistant Health Service Administrator is technically grievances, torts, basically telling all the inmates, no, we're not violating your rights, and essentially I'm getting, basically I want to try something different. I've been in military service, government service for 33 years, but in a different aspect, I want to go ahead and leave. So I'm hoping I can go ahead and retire from the BOP next month. That's not saying I'm not going to have anything else to do. My wife has a business, and basically I'm going to be working for her, which could be probably the worst job I've ever had.
Okay.
Why do I want to be on the Planning
Yeah,
Commission?
quick.
Basically, we love Canyon City. We came here, we see how it's growing. We know there's potential. We've seen it for the last, like I said, since 2004. So we've been here, 10, 15 years. And we see the things that we are doing that we can make it better. And we know we're bringing more people in. I see people from Fort Carson who commute from here to Fort Carson, so they're making their home here. I see more retirees coming here. I see people from Salida coming to visit us as far as tourism. I see people from Pueblo. I know that we're a tourist destination because my wife has a little book out, and we have people that at least come from our shop to our shop from all over the world, Australia, Germany, North Dakota, Nova Scotia, Washington, all that, and they come to our shop not only to visit us, but the railroad, the bridge, and everything else. So I think getting in on this and volunteering my time, knowing what I know, I think I can be of assistance as far as helping out on a volunteer basis.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gill, would you like to start with a question? Okay, Mr. Meisner?
Appreciate that.
Am I rushing you?
Planning Commission is often called upon to handle difficult decisions. Tell us how you would handle a controversial issue where attitudes and opinion of the public are expressed at a public hearing, and those comments and attitudes conflict with laws and regulations you're responsible to uphold. How do you handle that whole situation?
During a lot of my time within the DOC and the BOP, I relied on policies and regulations and program statements and things like that, and basically the law was the law. Now, if we're looking for zoning portions of it, again, I'm not familiar with government as much as planning and commission, things like that. I'm more in the healthcare field, so I want to provide a fresh perspective, I guess, as far as maybe offering maybe something different. If I were going to, I don't want to necessarily fight, but if I were had a conflict of interest, I guess, in what they're saying or what they're doing, I would have to basically go with what's written in policy.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smith?
I know your wife served on the Highway 50 quarter plan, and you guys own a business downtown, and you were a part of helping with the downtown development as far as the concept of downtown development authority and enhancing our downtown. Is that correct?
She would come home from the meetings and talk to me about it. So yes, we would have our ideas. We bounce back and forth, and then she would. I really didn't have an influence on her, but yeah, we did talk about what would be good and what would be bad, and what would make things certain better. And I would drive downtown every other night to see who was opening, who was closing, what's changing, what's this and that. So yeah, for 3 months I did get involved, and I thought it was an exciting process as far as what the town can be, what we can be in 5, 10, 20 years. Because I don't know if I did have a resume up there, that at least 2 of the 3 of my kids plan on coming back here, and we want to try to make it as nice to live here as we possibly can.
We're going to be looking towards looking at code compliance for buildings and businesses in the future. And as a planning commission member, you'd probably be a part of that. What is your opinion as far as helping businesses be more in compliance with their buildings and to codes, and helping streamline that process and making it more viable?
I'm sure that a lot of these buildings were built 100, 150 years ago, so some of the codes would probably need to be upgraded. I don't know if a lot of the city codes would be applicable right now, so I don't know if we would be able to upgrade those. I'm sure that some of the buildings here in reality should be torn down and restarted, because I don't know about the asbestos that might be in some of them. I don't know about the electricity that's run. I don't know about the plumbing that's needs to be worked in a lot of them. But we might have to rework some of the codes just to make most of these businesses compliant. I know that as far as my shop, I had to go ahead and gut my basement, because basically it was 3 different types of, there was copper, cast iron, there was PVC, there was all sorts of stuff. So he'd call a plumber in and make sure that it was all up to date. So yes, I think the codes, if we looked at them on an individual basis, we would have to make sure they're all up to date and to code so that the city could prosper.
Okay, Mr. Weed?
Thank you. How can the Planning Commission promote or work to affect growth, both residentially and commercially? What's their role in that?
As far as the Planning Commission, what's their role?
In promoting growth.
It's going to depend on where you're sitting, on what side of the aisle. You're going to have a lot of people who have been here for a long time and like the simple way of life, and they don't really want to see growth, as far as I know. I've met a lot of people who like it the way it is. They like the small town attitude. And then you've got the people who are here that want to see more amenities brought around. They want to see the new restaurants. They want to see the chain restaurants. They want to see the tourism bring in the dollars, which is great. I mean, the more money, the more taxes, the more that we can do with it. As far as the planning committee, like I said, I'm looking for the future. So not just 5 years from now, because 5 years goes by really quick. So you figure 10, 20 years down the line, I want to see Canyon City as a place to come, maybe not just to visit, but and not to be a vacation destination, but to live here. I think we can surpass a lot of these other areas around here.
Thank you.
Ms. Schumacher?
What accomplishment that you have had in your career would you bring to the planning and zoning?
What one accomplishment in my entire life would I bring to the
Yes.
planning commission? Just one.
Just one.
Normally you'd probably say family, but I guess it's the due diligence and what I've given to my career. One of my biggest, you always get all these awards. You always get NCO of the quarter and senior of the quarter. One thing I did do, which might not mean too much for you guys, but I was the senior non-commissioned officer, surgical technician of the year for the Material Services Command. It was basically the eastern side of the United States. I was the highest ranking surgical tech for, I think, the year 2003, 2004. So that was kind of cool. I thought it was. I got a little plaque if y'all need to see it. So,
You don't carry it with you?
no, not
Oh,
all.
okay.
The other thing that I really was sort of proud of was when we were bombed 9/11. I happened to be stationed over at Landstuhl, Germany, and before anybody knew it, I was talking to my wife, Kim, over the email, and she said the towers were, somebody just ran into the towers. I said, well, that's interesting. And then she came back and said, there's another plane that went into the towers. So immediately I was in charge of our clinic over there, so we shut down immediately. We put everybody on 12-hour shifts. That the next day, we started Aerovac missions from Landstuhl, Germany, down to Turkey, start picking up at least what we thought were the Northern Alliance. For the next, that changed everything. That changed airlines, that changed our state of being, that changed the way we did business as far as the military. So that one particular day, and it changed everybody else's lives, was something that I'm proud of as far as us getting in the gear and doing what our job was as far as the military. So,
Thank you. Frank? Question?
I hope you retire in July, like you plan on doing it. It's a good month to retire. Trying to do it on the 9th on my birthday, when we'll both celebrate. But you mentioned earlier about some of the things you had to go through with your business. You had different types of plumbing, this and all that other stuff. Now, any of those changes you did required anything that struck your fancy with regards to the regulations that we had? Gave you any problems? And if they gave you any problems, were they handled to the extent that you were satisfied with the outcome?
a couple of things that we noticed was that in our plot of our land, I was actually shorted a foot around my property. So if you look, I actually own a little bit more than I was given. So that was one of those little issues. Another one that gave me kind of a heartache was one of these big cast iron pipes that went under. It actually goes, I don't know if you know where our business is, but that cast iron pipe actually goes toward what used to be Gold Academy. Well, it ended So that pipe does not go anywhere anymore. So we were basically flushing things into that pipe, and it was backing up into another way because it had just stopped up. So whoever planned Gold Academy and ran that line, and whatever the business permit or whatever they didn't push it somewhere else, basically. They just chopped it and sealed it, and that was it. So that wasn't in the plan. We discovered that. The other issue I have as far as planning, things like that, is that we neighbor Hank's Travel Plaza, and we have a little stairway that comes down near us. Technically, I own that stairway, and we have people coming up and down that all the time. So I'm wondering if the city, basically I wonder what steps we could take to help pedestrian traffic, I guess, along that city, because there's a lot of trash and things like that. So that's kind of an issue that I'm concerned with, especially during some of these events. So just little things as far as being an owner.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll bring the rest in. Thank you. Randy?
Thank you, Randy.
This is nervous.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we still have one? That's it?
How many were you pointing?
3.
Oh, shit.
Now, when we do this, is there any priority to how we, I mean, it's obviously we're gonna pick 3. Is your first choice get 3 points, second get 2, third get 1?
There's 3 vacancies. They're all equal, so it's just 3 names.
Oh, yeah, I know, but
Right.
we're
There
all
doesn't have
gonna,
to be
we're all
preference
gonna pick,
points, I don't think.
I mean,
Well, I thought the top 2 vote getters would get the 3 years, and then the bottom would get
I
1
gotcha.
year.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All
Does
right.
that make sense with her? Is that acceptable?
yeah.
Think
Sounds
so?
like a plan.
So,
In case of a tie, we just do a tie-breaking vote
Right,
on
keep going, yeah.
those individuals, right?
okay. So,
Yep. Okay.
at this time, well, as I read, I should reread this. At this point, the council, we can move to reject all candidates. And is anybody, they will vote for that, obviously, but, so there doesn't seem to be a motion for that. So we will go ahead and pass out the ballots. And what we had talked about is there's 3 positions open. So the top 2 will get 3 years, and the third one will get 1 year as on the commission.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would just like to point out just a kind of little fun fact that I really like seeing in all of these candidates is almost every single one of them have served on one of our recent community committees.
Right.
And that it's really exciting to see how perhaps the community committees are helping to bring more people from Canyon City into local governance and leadership, and it's fantastic. I'm really
That was our
excited about
intent.
that.
I think when we all came in office almost 2 years ago now, it seems like 10, but was to get more people involved in the city government. And I think even for the selection of the manager and the chief of police and everything else, we probably had 200 people who have been involved in decision making. So that was our idea.
And I just want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for coming and applying and spending your evening with us tonight.
Well, so you're going to hand out a ballot every time? On this one, I just vote for 1? Oh, okay. Do I get a vote?
Gotta officiate the voting.
I don't know if I trust Tony.
I say no.
I say, yeah, I don't know about
Yeah, I don't know if we ought to let Tony.
What's going on behind my back?
Hmm?
What's going on behind my back?
You don't want to know.
Probably not. Okay.
Sun's not shining anymore.
You'll have to
There's
cross
probably
off
still
two.
one. Oh, sure.
We'll do 3 rounds.
You know, like they were saying, it's really neat that
Okay.
you guys have been involved and got people to come fill the planning commission. That's really cool.
I need my sheet then.
Okay, we have one definite winner and then a three-way tie. So the definite winner is Greg Dorito, and we've had a tie, so we'll pull out ballots again for those.
Good.
We've flushed out another one. We've still got another tie vote.
This is worse than Florida.
Gary Clark, you've been, are the highest vote getter now. We'll go out and we'll do them again.
Try that in English.
Gary Clark,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. I didn't understand what was said before and after. I just heard Gary Clark. I guess that was the important part.
2, 3.
Shoot.
Make sure you initial, are they initialed? I have 2.
Okay, we're done.
The the highest vote getter in that one is Rick Harmon.
So
So now we'll need a motion to.
we'll need a motion to accept this with, do we put the names in there, who the,
Motion would be to appoint Greg Dorito and Gary Clark with terms expiring in 2020, and Rick Harmon with the term expiring in 2018.
So moved.
I'm not ready. Sorry. Okay.
motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gill, second. Any questions on that motion? Yes, ma'am.
To question the other ones if they want to sit on the Board of Adjustment. Dennis?
Pardon?
Did you read my memo as far as Board of Adjustment? Would you want any of these guys to?
How many vacancies do we have? Oh, sure.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Councilmember Gill.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez. Councilmember Schumacher.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay.
Thank each and every one of you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you,
We have,
each and every one
well,
of you
wait,
for-
wait, not, Board of Adjustment. Would you like to ask that question, Mr. Weed?
Yeah, we have vacancies on the Board of Adjustment, and would any of you who did not get appointed to the Planning Commission be interested in being appointed to the Board of Adjustment?
Bob, I have Bob and Randy.
And I think I saw Eric's hand there. Yep.
Yes, you did.
That kind of rounds it out, doesn't it? Okay.
Okay, I'll get with each one of you probably next week at conference, and we'll get them. Do you guys want to just go ahead? I don't have the terms to appoint them. Can we just bring that back to council at the next meeting and put it on the consent agenda to appoint those three, and then we'd know their terms?
Sure.
I'm
Let's do
okay
that.
with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys.
offering that.
Okay,
It's,
we are adjourned.